No, you. Thank you. All right, if I could ask everyone please to try to settle in and be quiet. We do have two applications we need to get through tonight. First, we're going to have is a variance tonight. I'll get into my preamble in a second. I know that most everybody is here for the Mitchell Event Center, but we do have a variance request I need to get through as well. So I would like to get us started. Thank you very much, everyone, for coming tonight. My name is Carl Granrath. I'm a hearing examiner for tonight's hearings for the two applications before us. As many of you know, as I recognize a lot of faces, the point of tonight's hearing is for me to receive evidence and testimony from staff, the applicant, and the public with the matters that are pending. After the hearing tonight, and I'll go over some more of the particulars when it has to get to the Mitchell Event Center and some of the history, as there may be some new people that are here tonight. So we did have a previous public hearing on that. But we do, for the general people and members of the public who may be here for the variance, our general process is going to be that the staff presents the application through a PowerPoint presentation, goes over the particulars of the procedure and substantive of the case. Then the applicant has an opportunity to give their own presentation, present their own evidence, and then there's an opportunity for public comment. And then there's an opportunity for both staff and the applicant to give rebuttal testimony, answer questions, respond to questions and concerns. That's our general process. I jump in if and when I deem necessary. So that's generally how it's going to go tonight. Like I said, I'll get back to some more of the particulars of how and why we're back here for the Mitchell Event Center when we get there. But I would like to open the hearing for variance 25-0016, the Westway garage, and that's going to be Justus McGeorge who's going to present that. Thank you. Go ahead, sir.
Good evening, Mr. Hearing Examiner. Justus McGeorge, planner with Kootenai County, for the record. As we see here, we have a request to construct a garage 10 feet from the edge of the public road, which is less than the standard 25-foot front yard setback, which equates to a 15-foot variance. The location of the project site, this is Kidd Island Bay, where you see the star here, south of Coeur d'Alene. And again, the request is a 15-foot variance to the edge of a public road, which requires a public hearing. The site plan, I have it blown up on the right. This is the full scope of what is on the property. As we can see, outlined in blue is the existing dwelling. There is no attached garage with the dwelling. Right now, they utilize this area as a parking pad. And this area has been found most suitable for the construction of a garage due to multiple reasons, primarily being slope conditions, as we will see in a bit. This is an architectural drawing that the applicant has provided to us. It's just a concept. It could be subject to change. The zone is agricultural suburban. What that means is typically there's a 2-acre minimum parcel size. This is a non-conforming parcel, meaning it was created where the standards were different at the time, so it's about 0.303 acres, which means that it's a bit constrained in size. It has limited frontage, and again, being a waterfront lot, it has steep downslope to the bay. Here is an aerial image. Note there are pagination issues. The dwelling and the property is actually corresponding with here, so it looks more like this. And as we can see, this is the public road as confirmed by Worley Highway District. Approximately, this is the building area as proposed. And you can see retaining walls here. Here's another angle. It's pretty helpful. They would like to have the garage on the right side of their lot. You can see it's a little bit less steeped than in comparison to the left. Another image, different perspective. I thought this was a helpful image because the Highway District Director confirmed that this Kootenai electric power line, even though it's on the left side of the roadway, marks the center line of the right-of-way. And that is what is being utilized as the basis to determine the width of the right-of-way and how far the setback goes. This is the kind of the left side. As you see, retaining walls. This photo is taken from approximately the house location. Again, another perspective, a little bit less slope on the right. And then this is approximating where the edge of the garage, the front of the garage would be placed, clearly outside of the roadway. Again, another perspective of the steep conditions. This is this is an approximation developed by staff showing where the standard 25-foot setback would go. So if there was no variance approved, they would be obligated to construct a garage behind here if they desire to construct a garage. This is the power line that I referenced before. Public agencies in their review, none of them had any concerns at all. There are a couple of conditions of approval: Kootenai County Building Division standard construction code requirements, Kootenai Electric, a disclaimer stating if there's any relocation of utilities, it's owner's expense. One public comment was received in support of the request. No other comments were received. These are the findings that staff have found to be met to recommend approval for this project. Specifically, extraordinary characteristics are due to slope. This is more of a side note. If you read this staff analysis, or the applicant for that matter, there may have been a bit of redundancy in the analysis. In the editing process, the areas outlined in yellow have all the bulk of the information. In error, I did not remove the redundant information. Nonetheless, all the information is correct. There's nothing inaccurate in the filler here. So apologies for that. Again, staff analysis, a complete application was submitted. An undue hardship was demonstrated. The request is not in conflict with the public. Doing a surrounding analysis, there are many lots in the area that do have similar characteristics and have also received a variance for a very similar request, including the next door neighbor. So we recommend approval. Here's the site plan, and I stand for any questions.
Okay, thank you for your presentation. I don't have any questions for you at this time.
Thanks.
Thank you. All right, and we have the applicant or their representative, David Galt or Cult. I can't tell if that's a C or a G. All right, coming up to the microphone, state your name for the record. And
my name is David Galt, and here just to, first of all, I don't know if that was an error. It may have been his passion to repeat all of that twice. Justus has been very helpful in kind of helping me understand the process. Just to reiterate a couple of things, we're full-time, so we really feel that we need that winter garage. So because of that, we're interested in getting this approved. Our options are either to have a very steep driveway if we don't get the variance, which I don't think will be useful, or we have to build it up to where it's becomes sort of an obstruction for our next door neighbors on either side, as well as the other aspects of the construction. So we feel that the positioning where we have here is going to have it blend in the best it can with the neighborhood, and also with the making a safer thing to approach. As far as traffic, it's very minimal. So the fact that there are other homes along this road here that are also relatively close, it hasn't seemed to create a problem as far as safety or anything. So I think those were just the points that I thought I would draw in. And thank you.
okay, thank you, sir. I do have one other person who submitted to possibly speak on this, Alan Rich, who marked that you may wish to speak. All right, come up and just state your name for the record, and then go ahead.
Yes, my name is Alan Rich. I live on that street and went through the similar process for variance for our own home. I'll be brief. Bottom line, Westway Drive is a rural road, and it's a dead-end street. Between the applicant's home and the end of the street, there are literally 4 homes. And all of them are either summer rentals or summer occupancy. So traffic is very minimal. And I know it's a concern, backing out of a driveway into a busy street. I get that. That's not the case on this particular street. We had the exact same issue, very steep lot. So you either build the garage 25 feet back and put it on a front porch, or you have a slight variance that allows you to enjoy the luxuries that everyone else has, which is a roof over your garage during the middle of winter. So I totally support their efforts to build a garage. I know the builder. I know that it'll be a quality construction. But bottom line, it's not going to be an issue for anybody in the neighborhood. There's at least 6 or 7 homes on that street that have a 10-foot variance or less. There's a couple of houses that are probably 5 feet back from the roadway, and there's literally 0 issues. So I'm just here in support, and I think that's it. So thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. And I guess for the applicant as well, I meant to state this at the beginning. As a general process, after tonight's hearing and I close the record for your case, I have up to 2 weeks to submit my recommendation to the county staff, who will forward it to your county commissioners, who ultimately have the decision-making power for this case. So just to let you know that as well. That said, anything else from staff? All right, and are we still using a phone system? And I guess I just got to try and see if there's anyone who's on the phone who wishes to give public comment on this proposal. So if there's anybody on the phone who wishes to give public comment for the Westway garage variance, you may go ahead and speak now. All right, I didn't think so, but I have to try. All right, so I don't think I have any other questions of staff or the applicant. And I did, of course, review the entire record that was submitted to me by Mr. McGeorge. So I do believe I have enough information in the record in which to base my decision. So I'm going to be closing the record for variance 25-0016. And that hearing is now closed.
Thank you.
Thank you. She's in charge of my... And you can have these ones also. All right, I'm going to move us towards the second hearing for tonight. I just was told that I might not be being heard very well in the back of the room, so I will try to speak up as best I can. I also can hear my voice coming through garbled in the speakers. I'll do my best to be as loud as I can for as long as I can. I'm sure Mr. Foughty is going to go through some of the particulars of procedure that got to this case. I know a lot of you were here at the last public hearing in this case, and perhaps I will be discussing some of that with staff as well. After the original public hearing on this matter, I recommended that the case be remanded back to staff to address some concerns, obviously, that had come up at the hearing, including from the sheriff's office. I know staff is going to go over some of this as well. I believe staff determined that we should basically have a new public hearing with an effort on focusing on the new conditions that were proposed to be imposed as part of the CUP, as well as any of the procedural history and communications that had taken place from then. That said, every public comment that was written and given here in person at the last public hearing is still a part of this record. I am considering this, we are considering this a new public hearing, so you are free to give another public comment if you so desire. I'm I'm just going to kindly request that if you have submitted either written or public comment, especially if you've given verbal comment at the last hearing, and it's going to be duplicative at this hearing, I just want to reiterate that's already part of the record. I remember very well all the comments that were given at the last hearing. I have also read every single written comment that has been submitted from both the first one. I read them all back then, and I went through a little more quickly this time. But I did read every single written comment that was submitted on this second round as well. So with that in mind, and the fact that there are a lot of people here, I'm just going to ask that everybody try to be cognizant of everybody's time. We have no overall time limit. We can be here till midnight or later, I guess, if that's what it takes. So of course, I'm just going to kindly ask that you keep those two facts in mind. And then I would ask that also, one part of the remand, and I sort of just said this, is a focus perhaps on the new conditions that are being proposed. I think that would be the most useful. And I'm sure staff will go over some of those new conditions that have been proposed by the applicant, as well as some of the different departments and agencies that have offered their additional comments, as I think that'll be most helpful for me to understand how the public feels, not just overall, but with whether or not they believe the new conditions change the project at all. And again, I'm going to be compiling the record from tonight and be writing a recommendation to the county commissioners that is based not only on your feedback, but also the particulars of the case, all the comments from all the agencies with jurisdiction who have commented on this case. And again, to reiterate one last time, your county commissioners are ultimately the deciders of this case, and I will just be writing a recommendation. That said, generally speaking, tonight will be the last time for you to submit public comments that go into the record. So keeping all that in mind, I'm going to move us forward, and without further ado, I'll get us started. I'm going to open the hearing for CUP 25-0008, the Mitchell Event Center. And I will go over some more of the particulars of the public comment when we get there. So, all right.
Good evening, Mr. Hearing Examiner. For the record, my name is Joseph Foughty, Planner 2, Kootenai County Community Development. Before you is the CUP 25-0008, Place of Assembly, Mitchell Event Center on remand. As you noted, I will be briefly moving through slides 1 through 10 of this presentation as they were previously presented during the initial public hearing, so the information is going to be largely the same. The project site is located off of South Greens Ferry Road and West Little Cedar Lane. As you can see, that image again is the same. Nothing has changed with the proposal of the project site. Zoning map is still rural. Comprehensive plan map is still country, which you can see between left and right zoning and comprehensive. Project proposal, the original project proposal contemplated outdoor venue for weddings, family gatherings, community events, up to 25 per season, maximum 200 attendees, non-residential changing room, parking lot with 48 standard spaces and 3 accessible spaces, outdoor venue, seating up to 154 persons, permanent restrooms, if proposed, require Panhandle Health District, as the applicant is, at this time, they're unsure if they're going to do portable restrooms or permanent. All food is catered. Domestic water, potable water is delivered per event. There is no use of existing well or water on the site. Access, West Little Cedar Lane, private road. It's located within a 60-foot easement connecting to South Greens Ferry Road. The applicant still has proposed that a 2-lot minor subdivision with the venue located on North 10 acres is a possibility in the future if they deem to proceed that route. The site plan, as before, nothing has changed at this point. The applicant will be required to revise the site plan as needed upon approval, if it is approved. Site photos, still the same from before, West Little Cedar Lane on this side, and the access to the parking area comes from around this general area and extends downward. The event actual reception area would be around here, and the wedding venue area or community gathering center would be around that area. This is from the adjacent property owner's permission beyond their property, taking a picture from that angle as to where that would be in relation. The distance is approximately 25 feet. This is a better image of where the access would come down, leading towards a trail that would go down from the parking area, or to the parking area, and then to the event center. And then beyond this would be where the event platform would be. Following the December 4th, 2025 public hearing, the hearing examiner recommended remand of the application to community development to allow for further review of concerns raised by the Kootenai County Sheriff's Office and to ensure adequate consideration of wildfire mitigation measures. The applicant has therefore, or in response to the remand, the applicant has proposed the following mitigation measures. Fireworks and open flame fire pits are now prohibited. Noise monitoring will occur at 30-minute increments upon the commencement of music, monitoring that until 10 p.m. or the end of operations. Maximum noise level would be kept at 75 A-weighted decibels at the property line. The event log that was identified in the first public hearing will include the noise level readings, and that will be made available to Kootenai County Community Development upon request. A wildfire mitigation plan to be prepared by a qualified professional and an on-site evacuation plan also prepared by a qualified professional will be maintained on site. These plans are subject to review and approval prior to the issuance of a site disturbance permit. Facilities, the applicant has proposed to add 10 additional parking spaces to the proposed 48. According to the applicant's representative, the engineer of record confirms that 10 additional spaces within that area are feasible to be constructed or especially expanded. Total parking would be 58 spaces, still including the 3 ADA compliant. So, with consideration on remand, public agencies, the Kootenai County Fire and Rescue Fire District and the Kootenai County Sheriff's Office were elicited comment. Kootenai County Fire approved it with conditions, compliance with 2018 International Fire Code. West Little Cedar Lane has occurred some vegetative creep over the years, according to their email, and that needs to be widened out. The vegetative creep essentially needs to be removed in order to make the road 20 feet wide again. It is, of course, within a 60-foot easement. Kootenai County Sheriff's Office, no changes from prior comments. They are still opposed due to limited evacuation routes and the potential of future strain on emergency services. During the first public comment period, 9 in support, 17, you are aware of this, 17 comments received in support after the close, 143 in opposition, 15 received in opposition after. Concerns were incorrect classification of place of assembly, potential impact to the aquifer surface water resource area, and compatibility issues for fire, danger, road access, noise, wildlife, and vandalism. Additionally, the proximity to existing venues such as Settlers Creek and Quinlan Park. During the second public comment period, one comment was received in support, 5 were neutral, 228 in opposition. 6 of those comments were received as duplicate entries. They were entered into the record at a separate time under new entry numbers. Late comments, 2 comments received in support, 1 was a duplicate entry, and I actually have with me here, it was presented tonight, 5 in opposition at the time that this was prepared. 2 additional were presented tonight and late for opposition. I'm going to enter those into the record now.
Read into the record is HE 2001. Thank you.
And opposition largely reiterated concerns raised during the initial public hearing. Staff analysis. The proposal will be required to comply. This was the staff analysis that was done at the first public hearing. That they would be required to comply with rural zone and CUP standards. Agencies with jurisdiction identified wastewater, fire, access and approach permitting between the fire district, the highway district, and Panhandle Health District. Site constraints, the site still requires a geotechnical evaluation review and best management practices at time of site disturbance. Noise, visual, and environmental impacts can be mitigated through limited hours, landscaping and vegetation, and sanitation controls. Again, applicant was responsible for demonstrating compatibility. The staff analysis that was performed on the remand is that the area is comprised generally of rural parcels of land of various sizes. Primary uses are for residential and or recreational purposes. A place of assembly is therefore considered compatible with surrounding parcels, again, with adequate mitigation measures implemented as conditions of approval. Noise mitigation, additional parking, and prohibition of fireworks and open flame fire pits. Staff believes they adequately mitigate environmental, social, and economic impacts. The fire district reviewed and approved the request with conditions. The sheriff's office still being opposed. That is, so staff concludes that the application does meet the procedural requirements, is compatible with surrounding rural uses. Environmental, social impacts are mitigated through conditions. The fire district has approved. While the applicant has made the effort to address these concerns raised by the sheriff's office, staff finds that the responsibility ultimately remains with the applicant to demonstrate that the proposal is compatible. And with that, I stand for any questions that you have.
Okay, thank you, sir, for your presentation. I do have a couple line of questions, and I'm sure we'll bleed over into the applicant and maybe give them a heads up on some of the things I want to talk about.
Absolutely.
So I guess first, with the letter from the sheriff, I guess, all I saw on the record was that letter and then a response saying, yep, we're going with the letter. So I want to know a little bit more about maybe what attempts were made or other communications or proposed mitigation measures coming from either side. And I'm not sure if the applicant can maybe speak to their attempts at communication. I want to know what else was done, proposed conditions from the sheriff's department, or they essentially said there's just no way that we can be in support of this. Just want to know more, if there is more.
Understood. Yeah, I can speak to just one part of that. The applicant will have to fill in the rest of it as far as their attempts to contact. Kootenai County Community Development reached out to the sheriff's office at 3 separate occasions. We received communication from Captain Scott Maxwell, and we were informed that the letter that was provided during the remand, essentially, recommendation, is what will stand. They don't have any further comments to make. They don't have any conditions of approval that the applicant can satisfy at this time. Their concern is that limited evacuation route and the strain on emergency services is going to place an undue burden on their agency. So that is all I have for you as far as that. The applicant could fill in on theirs.
Okay, and I'm just going to bring up their letter real quick just for my reference. So again, yeah, the 2 points being, and I'm going to connect, well, I'll come back to this one. Their second point being, essentially, they say, and for the record, this is the December 12th letter to myself and to the Kootenai County Development Department. Essentially says, additionally, should a fire incident occur at the site, the sustained presence over multiple days or a week would put a significant strain on the sheriff's office resources to provide public safety. I guess I don't have any further comment. I don't think they have a representative here tonight, do they? I don't think so. Okay. I guess I'm not entirely sure what that's saying other than if there's a fire that puts strain on county resources, which I think essentially could apply to anything or any project. But perhaps with maybe to more of the substantive one about them being concerned about evacuation routes. I guess maybe first of all, have you seen, or maybe other staff members can chime in here, about the sheriff commenting on evacuation routes or that being a limiting factor on other proposals that you can think of or maybe supplied to the record?
I don't have a qualitative, response to that. As I, this is something that I'm not sure if the department has seen before. I'm sure that maybe Ben Tarbutton, the planning manager, can speak to that.
Yeah, Ben Tarbutton, planning manager, for the record. This comment from the sheriff's office is a new comment. We haven't seen this before, to my knowledge. It could exist out there, but again, typically the sheriff's department does not comment frequently on our projects.
Okay, and when it comes to evaluating evacuation, I think I know the answer to this, but who's responsible for taking a look at that? I did see some comments from, talking about wildfire safety and the urban interface, but that's usually more like building code stuff, like putting metal shingles on, keeping 30 feet clear of your structures, not having fuel source. But who's actually in charge of evacuation plans?
That aspect, I believe the applicant has more detail on that one.
Okay, and I do see that there is possibly someone here from Kootenai County Office of Emergency Management, which I may call up here in a little bit. But okay. And again, I want to go into this. So, because we also, we do have sorry, I'm going away from the microphone. We do have the comment from the fire department. Let me just get to that real quick. From Kootenai County Fire and Rescue, whoever reviewed the project, and I guess, and I don't think we have a representative from them here tonight either. So if they're not responsible for evacuation plan, what are they looking at when they're evaluating? What's their jurisdictional parameters?
An email I received earlier today from Kootenai County Fire and Rescue Chief Gerald Archer was that they are not responsible for evaluating those plans or reviewing those plans. Essentially, the IFC, the International Fire Code, explains how to get people out of a building, not out of a wildfire. That was his comment. I can provide that email to you. But as far as who actually reviews these plans, again, the applicant or applicant's representative is going to be speaking to that.
Okay, so maybe fair to say, but expand on what I'm saying. The Kootenai County Fire and Rescue is looking at fire code for the buildings or anything that's built, and then also access for emergency vehicles to get to a site. Is there anything else they're generally looking at?
No, that's what their comment pretty much entailed, and that's why they included in their commentary that the vegetative creep needed to be removed essentially, so that way, the road is already 20 feet wide. It just has vegetation that has extended over for the several years.
Okay, so the widening of the road is really just kind of maintenance and upkeep?
Yes, sir.
Is it being paved, or is it just?
No,
Okay.
Well, that is up to the applicant to determine. I haven't had a conversation about that yet.
Okay.
But it is within a 60-foot easement that I believe is under a road maintenance agreement among several different members of the public, and so I believe that those members would have to agree to that kind of maintenance.
Okay. All right, I think that's all the questions I have for you. I may call you up again, but I think I'll have the applicant go. So thank you, sir.
We'll leave that on.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm gonna let him pull up the.
Oh, all right.
Good evening, Mr. Hearing Examiner. My name is Stephanie Blaylock. I'm a land use planner with Veritas. I'm here today representing the applicants, Tim and Erica Mitchell. Our address is 3906 North Shriver Way in Coeur d'Alene. I want to thank you for giving us the opportunity to address the concerns in your HE analysis. We appreciate. I feel like it maybe it's not on.
Turn it down, turn it down. There you go.
Can you hear me now?
We gotta talk to them.
Can you hear me now? Testing, testing. Oh, I'm speaking up. Maybe that'll help. Is that better?
Just, guess try to project a little. I feel like the speakers are different or not working
that
the
better?
same tonight.
Okay, here we go. I want to thank you for giving us the opportunity to address the concerns in your HE analysis. We appreciate being able to provide input on additional conditions of approval, which Joseph has incorporated into the draft recommendations and proposed conditions. To briefly recap the proposal, the Mitchell family owns 40 acres. 10 acres are proposed for the seasonal event center. The request is for a maximum of 25 events per year with attendance capped at 200 people, including sound. I met with Gerald Archer, Division Chief of Prevention Fire Marshal for Kootenai County Fire and Rescue on January 15th to discuss wildfire mitigation measures. Mr. Archer said the International Fire Code does not allow him to address wildfire mitigation measures. He can only address structure and access. He suggested contacting the Idaho Department of Lands, the agency that actually responds to the wildfires. Next, I contacted Terry Zufelt, the fire warden at Idaho Department of Lands. He responded to my inquiry about providing mitigation measures for the conditional use permit. Mr. Zufelt responded with an email that IDL does not consider it their responsibility to get involved with conditional permits. He did provide a set of recommendations that will be implemented in the fire mitigation plan that will be submitted as a condition of approval. He also recommended enrolling in the Fire Smart program. Although he doesn't want to get involved in the conditional use permits, he didn't say this, but I will clarify with him that he would look at our fire mitigation plan and review that. We have contacted a firm that provides wildfire mitigation plans and wildfire evacuation plans, prepared by a certified wildfire mitigation specialist. These specialists include fire protection engineers, qualified foresters, and emergency management specialists. We would expect these plans to be reviewed by the applicable agencies. As a result of concerns, Mr. Mitchell has also offered to prohibit fireworks and any open flames during events. Quiet, please. Parking. The applicant has increased the parking from 50 to 60 spaces. 57 parking spaces will be provided in the area east of the venue and 3 handicap spaces at the venue site. All parking will be provided on site. There will be signs installed that state off-site parking is not permitted. A parking attendant will manage and direct vehicles during events. The applicant is providing an additional 36 spaces over the county's minimum requirement. Traffic. I was going to address traffic, but as you stated in your analysis, there is no incompatibility. Your statement reads, the increase in traffic is moderate and intermittent, likely only on the weekends when overall traffic is typically lower than weekdays. As to the roads, Greensbury and Riverview, there is no incompatibility. Little Steel Road will be upgraded to the 2018 International Fire Code standards, no different than any other development requirement in Kootenai County. Sound mitigation. The applicant will adhere to a 60 decibel level requirement. There are 2 other venues in the county with a similar condition of approval, and both have been successfully operating for over 10 years. Noise levels will be checked at the north and west property boundaries every 30 minutes once the music starts with a decibel reader and will continue until 10 p.m. Strategies to minimize sound impacts. Is the decibel level limits enforced? Restricted operating hours, 10 p.m. closure. Vegetative buffers to absorb sound. Trees, forest floors, shrubs, and landscaping are all sound absorbers in mountainous areas. That is cited from the USDA and Forest Service website. The venue is located away from nearby residences, the closest residence being approximately 1,200 feet away.
All right. Yeah, real quick while we're talking about that.
Yeah.
Just to clarify, I've seen the 60 and the 75.
We'll go with
back and
60.
forth.
Yeah.
60?
Yep.
60?
We're willing to go with 60.
And it was stated that'd be measured from the property line, right?
Property boundary line,
Property
yes.
boundary line. So if you, and again, this is right at the corner of the property, so that'll be measured. Do you have a laser pointer? If you can kind of approximate, maybe show us where that'd be measured.
About right there. So this is the north property line, and then this is about the west property line here.
So in multiple spots or the two spots, just how realistically, where would it be
Realistically, it's probably going to be about here and about here.
measured? Okay. Is that, I don't recall, is that specifically delineated in the proposed condition, 2 spots or 1 spot or 3?
I don't think it's addressed. Yeah, it just says
Okay.
we'll check it at the property lines.
Okay, go ahead.
Some final thoughts. We recently received a packet of materials that the opposition distributed to mailboxes as far west as Schilling Loop and as far east as Ruby Road, covering approximately a 5-mile radius. Unfortunately, by the time we received it, it was too late to include in the official record. The significant volume of comments reflects a largely fear-based campaign by the opposition, which has reached individuals who are not directly impacted by the project. I would like to request that this packet be submitted into the record for your review. No need.
Read into the record is HE 2002.
At the December hearing, stormwater runoff concerns were brought up. A site disturbance plan will be submitted to Kootenai County for approval prior to any site disturbance. The plan is required to include grading, drainage, containment, and treatment of post-construction construction runoff. Kootenai County Land Use Code allows for conditional uses in the rural zone. A few of those uses include weddings, churches, commercial resorts, hospitals, racetracks, and outdoor theaters. This proposal represents a low-impact, seasonal, family-operated venue that preserves open space, protects residential character, and fits the county's vision for rural entrepreneurship, while having a minimal impact on the surrounding area. The criteria that makes this a low-impact venue is no proposed structures, limited operating hours, limited number of events, limited number of guests, and preservation of vegetative buffers. We have researched and offered several additional conditions of approval that mitigate the concerns of the remand. The Mitchell's priority is to operate the event center in a way that respects their home, their neighbors, and this rural community. No one is more impacted by the facility's operations than the family themselves. That does conclude my presentation, and I can answer questions.
Yeah, thank you. I guess I'll kind of go in the same order I did with Mr. Foughty. I guess, can you talk about any communications you had with the sheriff's office?
Yeah, so I did contact the sheriff's office back in December and left a message and did not receive a return call. I talked to Joseph about it. He tried an additional couple times. I think he finally ended up getting a response back. Since I didn't get a response, I took from their letter what I thought was important to address, which was the wildfire mitigation and evacuation.
Okay. Can you tell me a little bit about more like what an evacuation plan is, how they're prepared, what they do, what this one would look like, maybe?
Yeah, so when I contacted the wildfire mitigation company, the evacuation plan, they said they look at the local emergency plan, they look at the site, they visit the site, and they have GIS modeling, and then they put together an evacuation plan. We haven't contracted with them yet, but the company seems like they do quite a few.
Okay. I mean, I guess I want to know what that's going to be. I mean, it seems like there's one option that's going to, or maybe two once you get down to Greens Ferry Road. You either go north or you go south.
Right.
And then you get up, and
Yep.
you either go left or you go right, east or
Yeah.
west. So,
At this point, until they get approval, the evacuation and fire mitigation plans are pretty expensive. So we haven't gone the route of having it completed yet until we get approval.
yeah, it does make it difficult for me to hear when everybody speaks. So if I could please, you'll have your opportunity for public comments. I promise. So, yeah, I guess I mean, is that, have you done evacuation plans with any other projects?
No, we've never been required to. There is a similar CUP up in, I think it's Athol right now, that's going through the process. I looked at it today because they actually contacted us. And all of the agencies have responded, including the sheriff, that had 0 comments.
What kind of project was that?
It's a event center assembly, place of assembly.
Okay, so is the issue here really Little Cedar Lane and everybody getting down from Little Cedar Lane? I mean, I understand the comments from the public, but I want to know, like, I wish I had more detail from the sheriff, to be honest, about
Right.
what the particular concern was.
Yeah, I'm not
And
sure.
to see if it can be mitigated or
Yeah,
not.
that's why I called.
Okay. Okay, so can you tell me a little bit more about the wildfire mitigation plan and what that might
So,
look like?
Same company puts together the wildfire mitigation plan, and they will basically go in and look at what space needs to be cleared out, what's fire fuels. There'll probably be a required defensible space around the actual event center. We definitely want to retain the vegetation, but if they require that be moved due to fire fuels, then we'll do that.
Okay,
We'll follow the mitigation plan, but they usually look at mostly the surrounding area around the venue.
okay. So kind of the standard, like clean up the brush, keep stuff away from structures.
Keep things trimmed, keep things watered around the venue.
Okay. And again, you're proposing no fireworks and no open flame,
Correct.
but not a no smoking ban.
No.
Okay. How about sparklers, or would sparklers be considered
Sparklers
fireworks?
are considered fireworks.
Okay, that's just a random aside,
Yeah.
I thought, because
Yeah.
I've seen them at weddings before.
I'll make that call.
Okay. Okay, I think that's all the questions I have for you. I know both you and staff are going to have an opportunity for rebuttal. I anticipate you wanting to take that opportunity. So I'm going to try to move us towards public comment, but I do have a slip here of someone who's from Kootenai County Office of Emergency Management who wishes to speak, Andrea Littlefield, and I think now might be the most appropriate time for her to come up and speak. I'm not seeing anybody move. So is Andrea Littlefield? Oh, okay,
She's here.
sorry, you were hidden right behind.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, so I don't know if you had prepared remarks.
Yep.
Okay, all right.
Andrea Littlefield for the record, Kootenai County Office of Emergency Management. In the last couple months, we have gotten a tremendous amount of phone calls regarding the Fire Smart program, specifically with this project. So I just wanted to clear up some misinformation that is being circulated. The Kootenai County Fire Smart program does not operate through individual property owners submitting applications. Instead, the program gauges landowner interest and holds annual workshops with key stakeholders, such as the Idaho Department of Lands, U.S. Forest Service, and all of the local fire jurisdictions. These partners work together to determine where the grant application should be submitted for the upcoming grant cycles. We do not provide direct treatment services to individual landowners. Instead, we work with our foresters and partner agencies to identify meaningful fuel reduction projects, such as strategic fire breaks that reduce overall wildfire risk while maintaining forest health. Currently, there are no active projects in this area under discussion. The property owners are encouraged to contact their local fire jurisdiction or the Idaho Department of Lands to request site assessments and connect with available resources. And in the absence of active grant funding projects in a given area, landowners may also contract with private hazardous fuels reduction service providers. They are more than welcome to call the office, and we have a procedure where we have a group of foresters, and a forester can come out and do an assessment of their property and find out, they'll give them a detailed description on what needs to be done to be able to fire smart their property. Due to our grant cycles and the fact that this is a grant, it's a very long process between the time we apply to the time we put work on the ground. So
What could you get with a grant? Like what would the work look like?
it would be, we would remove hazardous fuel treatment, but the problem is that the purpose of the funds is to build the biggest fire break that we can. So it would be it wouldn't be just an individual property. It would be multiple properties to build the biggest fire break in that area.
So
It's not
just
really-
hypothetically, this parcel, half a dozen or more others would all have to get on board and apply for the grant and get it, and then you would build a fire break across
the grant is applied through Kootenai County.
Okay.
So we would have the grant in hand, and our forester would come up with projects to build fire breaks. So if one property owner, let's just say, had 5 acres, that is kind of like a one-off. If we had 10 property owners along the same line that would like to all have their property have hazardous fuel mitigation work done, then that is one consistent line of a fire break.
Okay. Okay, so
This was mainly just to clear up information about what the Fire Smart program is and how it works, and not necessarily against or opposed. It was more of an informational purposes because our office has been inundated with phone calls regarding this.
okay. And your agency doesn't do evacuation planning? Is it
We do
what?
evacuation planning for the county, but it is ultimately up to each individual to know their evacuation routes. During an active wildfire, it is law enforcement that will go door to door and tell everybody where they're evacuating. Kootenai County Office of Emergency Management will put up shelters. But as for the evacuation routes, that is through the fire department, personal responsibility, and during the fire, it is through law enforcement.
Okay, so you guys come up with the like the area-wide evacuation plans?
We come up with the plans for like each county property.
Okay, like you see in the buildings, like go
Yep.
this way, turn left there, there's your exit. So conceivably, there's an established evacuation route for this property, right?
For the
So
property that
this
we're
this
on.
property, yeah.
Yes.
This property that's for the application tonight.
Oh, not for the application,
But the property we're talking about, the applicants here, their property, conceivably they have an established evacuation route as.
No, that's private. Kootenai County Office of Emergency Management will do the evacuation routes or planning for like the Kootenai County building, but not for personal property.
Okay. Okay, so you only do it for, what do private owners, so what is a private owner, how are they supposed to know their evacuation route?
They can go through their local fire jurisdiction to assess the correct directions through their fire jurisdiction. The fire jurisdiction will also come to their property and do an evaluation of their home for fire mitigation.
Okay. I'm sorry that I'm, maybe a little ignorant of how this works. I'm trying to figure out who's responsible for reviewing whether a property can be evacuated or not.
And that would be the fire department.
Suppose I'm a little confused because I've just gotten testimony from staff that the fire department only looks at structural, fire code for structures and whether or not emergency vehicles can get to a fire at someone's house or building. And it seems like the fire department is saying they're not in charge of talking about evacuation. So I'm just trying to figure out if there is any jurisdictional agency that can give me whether it's within their purview, maybe this is just a hole in the system.
According to the 2018 International Fire Code, the responsibility for developing an evacuation plan for outdoor rural venues, particularly those functioning as temporary special events, tents, or open-air assemblies, typically lies with the owner, event operator, or the authorized agent.
Okay, so the evacuation plan from the property to a public street, to a safe place. I'm sorry, I'm just really trying to understand the basics. It sounds like there's like 2 or 3 different things being talked about here. There's evacuation from your property or from your building, how you get out of the building. But then if it's a forest fire, where do you go after you get off your property and onto the road networks? So it seems like there's different things.
It all depends on where the fire is. So during an active fire, it is usually going to be either the fire district or IDL based on the fire spread and the projected fire where the fire is potentially going to spread, and then law enforcement comes in to assist with the evacuation route.
Okay. And again, that part, if you just read part of that, the part you just read about it being from the 2018 Fire Code, can you give me that reference again for the record?
According to the 2018 International Fire Code, the responsibility for developing an evacuation plan for outdoor rural venues, particularly those functioning as temporary special events, typically lies with the owner, event operator, or their authorized agent.
Okay, so that's saying the property owner needs to come up with their own evacuation plan.
Correct.
Okay. And that's typically not something that's going to be reviewed by the fire department, or definitely not your agency.
The fire department would probably review it and tell you if that's the best route, but they are not going to come up with the plan for you.
Okay. Thank you. Sorry for being difficult,
Sorry.
but thank you very much.
Sorry for being scattered.
No, thank you for your testimony. I guess I want to just stay on this topic real quick with staff. If you're following my train of thought here with trying to figure out if there is a jurisdictional agency that can or should be commenting on this.
To my knowledge, there isn't an agency that will approve an evacuation route. Based on what the applicant has provided, they are willing to reach out to Idaho Department of Lands for recommendations, review of the plan. But I don't think either that Idaho Department of Lands will review and approve the plan, but they may provide recommendation to it. But as the 2018 International Fire Code stated, it's ultimately the responsibility of the property owner.
Okay. And is there ever an instance or any standards or anything like that when, I see in some other jurisdictions, a neighborhood needs to have 2 ways out of it? Or there's a threshold in some jurisdictions I work for. Okay, you've got over 40 houses. Now you've got to have 2 ways out and they need to be this far away. Is there anything like that here or that can be applied to this case?
That is regulation within the 2018 International Fire Code, but that's set up for dwelling units.
Okay.
And I believe the number on that is 30 being the threshold. So when a certain road exceeds 30 dwelling units, then a secondary means of emergency access is required.
Okay. And again, that same IFC just says if you're going to do an outdoor gathering, the person in charge of it needs to come up with an evacuation plan.
That's my understanding.
That's the only rule we've got to work with?
That's my understanding.
Okay.
And since the sheriff's department wasn't willing to expand on their comments, I guess staff would only assume that that means that they don't have specific standards to apply, but that's just the point that it does put a burden on their staff in the event of an emergency.
Okay. All right, I may revisit these, hopefully not again later, but I'm going to get us moving forward into the public comment period. And again, thanks, Ms. Littlefield, for coming up and testifying before the rest of the public. Again, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to start with all of the in favors, and then I'm going to move to, I'm not sure we have any neutrals. We might have a couple neutrals, and I'll go to them next. I think what I'm going to do, we've got a couple that didn't mark whether they wish to speak or not. I think what I'm going to do when I get to the opposed is I'm gonna start with the groups and the group representatives, and thank you all who've signed up for that. And I will verify all those people are in the room still. But then I'm going to run through those who wish to speak. And anyone who did not wish to speak, I'm not going to read your name off this time. But when I get through everyone who says they wish to speak, I'll give an opportunity for anyone else who's still here who didn't speak to be able to come up and speak. Let's say our standard normal hearing rules are 5 minutes per person. I know there's some consternation last time about me limiting it to 3 minutes. I would ask that you I'm going to set a timer for 3 minutes. I'm going to ask you to please try to keep your comments to 3 minutes. But I will give you an absolute hard stop at 5 minutes in the interest of everybody's time. Also ask that you come up to the podium, state your name and address for the record, and please direct all of your comments towards me. And all right, let's go. And I'm just going to go in the order I have them here. So I have Jalen Peters in favor, who wishes to speak.
Thank you. Yes, Jalen Peters. I live in 66 Fern Lane, Coquilella. I was hoping. Okay, I'm going to bend over like this awkwardly then for you, okay? Or can I just hold it? Hey, I got this. All right. I'm speaking in favor of this, obviously. I wanted to just share a little bit of a character reference of them, but also a little bit of my background. I've known the Mitchells for just over 8 years. My kids went to school with their kids, and my youngest boy is one of their older boys' best friends in a way. And so I know them very, very well on a personal level. And I just wanted to kind of talk a little bit about that. And then a little bit about even my work history with them. I've done work with them and their event team. So Tim and Erica are individuals of strong integrity and have consistently shown themselves to be trustworthy and dependable. They care deeply about their community and genuinely are committed to making it a better place. I think we've witnessed that by their actions and attempts to remediate a lot of these issues, which I love their plan. And I honestly, from a construction background that I have, see no real issues with this. I'm familiar with evacuation plans as well being provided in this manner. And so I would agree with all the things that were presented as well. But their actions reflect that they're committed to the community. I know also that they are known for strong work ethic. Tim and Erica approach their business with professionalism and pride. I've had the opportunity to work for them in different events, and so I've seen firsthand. I've done valet parking with them. I've served food. I've done these things at these events, and I've seen how they treat neighbors, how they treat their team, how they treat the clients, and it's with the utmost respect. And at the end of every event, it's left exactly how they came or even better. And I think that goes to show that they're willing to have this be what's represented in this event center, and they're committed to that. And for those reasons, I support it. I also want to just say that beyond their professional strengths that I've mentioned here, they're just simply good people. Is that my timer? Or is that Jesus calling? No, I'm just kidding, because if it's not him, don't answer. Beyond their professional strengths, I just wanted to say that they're good people. They're faithful, and they're community-minded, and they're driven by a desire to contribute positively. I go to church with them, and I've seen their faithfulness and commitment to the community in many, many different ways, and I have no doubt that their commitment to making this event center be functional and practical, but also something that is a betterment for the community, that it would be, I support it in that way for those reasons. So that's pretty much all I have to say.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Yep, you got it.
We got Josh Mitchell, or John, sorry. Josh, okay, Josh Mitchell.
Thank you. My name is Josh Mitchell. I live in Post Falls off of Portside Court. I just wanted to publicly show my support for the venue. Tim and I both have lived in Post Falls, graduated from Post Falls High School, endured the vote where we were just trying to get from a really old middle school to a new high school to where we could finally graduate. We've watched the Crib City kind of bloom. A lot of people live in Post Falls. Not many people work there, so we're very committed to trying to provide jobs for local people. We owned a restaurant in Post Falls. We've had our commissary kitchen there before, so we've been trying to support Post Falls and the surrounding area as diligently as a local can. And I believe that we've worked very, very hard to make sure that we've met and mitigated a lot of the requirements, not necessarily the popular opinion. What we're asking for is no louder than the big development that they built around the corner, or we're 40 houses with only one way in and out, and our venue has two ways in and out to get back to Little Cedar Road, excuse me. So we're trying to mitigate as much as possible and be as kind and professional in the progress. We're not hanging up propaganda illegally on mailboxes or having our vote influenced by local law enforcement that lives there closely. We're just trying to make sure we hit all of our rules and all the requirements that the county sets to make sure that it's as least impactful as possible. We're locals and we know what it's like when new developments pop up. We can point to almost 2/3 of the buildings in Post Falls and say, I remember when that was a field. But I can also see the progress and the change that it's brought to the community, where it doesn't feel as much as like a crib city anymore, where it's only a place for newlyweds and newborns, and nobody can actually work and live in Post Falls. We're just trying to bring more opportunity to Post Falls so it can continue to grow, and we're just trying to invest in our community.
Okay.
That's all I have.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, I'm not going to do this for the opposed, but I have Jamie Paul does not wish to speak, just making sure that's the case. Okay. All right, Erica Mitchell does not wish to speak. Okay. Did you want to speak, Mr. Mitchell? You don't have a sign-up sheet for you? Okay. The next one on my list, before I do get to the opposed, just real quick, it's marked neutral and opposed, so I just want to, and doesn't say whether they wish to speak or not. So in the event that this is someone who's neutral, although I'm seeing a Green Ferry Road address, I have Dennis Waterman. Are you opposed and going to want to be speaking during that section?
I'm not sure.
Okay, I'll put you a little farther down in the stack. All right, so I'm going to move us to the two group presentations. If some of you are the same member from last time, I'm going to call up the group representative, and then I do need to read off everybody's name to make sure they're in the room and being represented. So the first one I have is Cynthia Blaylock. Yeah, sure, you can come up, or you can make your way up, and then I'm going to read through the names. And if I could just have you raise your hand and or say here. Ann Samway. Okay. Jim Blaylock. Okay. Alan Homia or Homer. Okay. Yeah, no, I got to make sure, it's our protocol. I got to make sure everybody's in the room. Sandy Willis. Okay, thank you. Chris Downand. Frank Malpera. Scott Smith. Ricky Ortega. Kathy Ortega. And Shane Scribner. All right, great. They're all here. I believe is it 10 or 15 minutes? Okay, so it's up to 15 minutes for the group presentation.
I will not take the 15.
Okay. Go ahead.
Good evening, Mr. Granrath. I think that this CUP application should be denied, as the county's method. Can't hear? Up. It doesn't. Okay, green light is on. All right, start over. Pardon me? That might be too loud. We'll see. Let me know if I'm too loud. I have been accused of that. I think that the CUP application should be denied. It just doesn't. It doesn't.
It works like this. So if your mouth is pointed towards this, can you all hear me?
So it can. And then can it be turned like that? Okay. All right. I'll just try to project a little more. Again, I believe this CUP application should be denied, as the county's method for evaluating whether this proposed use fits within a rural zone does not align with its expressed concerns about wildfire risk and is therefore inadequate. The county's comprehensive plan states on page 99, quote, "The number one hazard facing Kootenai County is wildfire," close quote. The county's multi-jurisdictional all-hazard mitigation plan, which is accessible on the sheriff's website, says that Kootenai County faces a wildfire risk that is 67% greater than the national average for U.S. counties, and noted that Kootenai County wildfires in 2015 resulted in $8 million in property damage. In 2018, $7.7 million in property damage, and in 2023, over $40,000 in property damage. The 2023 fires included the Parkway fire, which was about 3 miles from applicant's proposed venue. In addition, County Code Section 8.1.103D states that one of the purposes of the Land Use and Development Code is to, quote, "carry out the goals and policies of the Kootenai County Comprehensive Plan." And this is why, Mr. Granrath, I was troubled to read on page 15 of your remand recommendation that a, quote, "generalized fear of forest fires is simply not a valid basis for denial," close quote. Our concern about wildfires is legitimate and supported by facts in the county's comprehensive plan and all-hazard mitigation plan. It is not a generalized fear. The remote location of the venue, 9/10 of a mile from the closest public road, down a narrow potholed easement with only one way in and one way out, there are no other evacuation routes. With no fire hydrants or adequate water supply on site, in a canyon that is designated high fire risk, justifies a very fact-specific concern of fire risk. This venue is not like Settlers Creek or Camillin Park, other or outdoor venues cited by applicant as being in the rural zone. Both of those locations have fire hydrants and or adequate running water. Both are immediately adjacent to public roads that allow safe and easy ingress and egress for guests and emergency vehicles, and both of them have more than adequate parking. Unfortunately, the county's planning process did not carry out the goals of the Kootenai County Comprehensive Plan with respect to assessing the wildfire risk of this proposed use. Let me explain why. In a September 10th, 2024 email from Kootenai County Fire and Rescue to Stephanie Blaylock at Vertus, Fire Marshal Gerald Archer said, "There are 2 noticeable pinch points on the easement road, and that both obstructions could be overcome by waiting on either side for oncoming traffic to pass." Seriously? So in the event of fire, the responding fire apparatus can just park and wait on the side of the easement while up to, I'm not sure if we're at 58 or 60 vehicles, but approximately 60 vehicles, with panicked guests attempt to flee? And what about the guests who couldn't find parking in the designated parking lot? Are they just going to run down the narrow easement, past the lined up cars, while first responders are waiting with their engines idling at these choke points? Or alternatively, do the fire apparatus and other emergency vehicles get in first, leaving the 58 or 60 vehicles and people on foot stuck at the pinch points with a fire burning behind them? None of us here tonight know the answer to those questions because applicant has not filed a fire mitigation and evacuation plan. County hasn't seen it, we haven't seen it, and you haven't seen it. A plan to get a plan is not a plan. And an excuse that obtaining a plan is cost prohibitive at this point isn't useful for public comment. So if there is no public comment period after they find the money to get their plan, we get no opportunity to comment on the adequacy of that plan. Your remand recommendations suggested applicant meet with appropriate agencies to mitigate concerns raised by opponents of the proposal. The email chain marked S13 on the county's website with respect to the CUP shows that Ms. Blaylock did meet with KCFR Fire Marshal Archer on January 15th, and he told her KCFR does not handle wildfire risk or mitigation, as we've heard tonight, and that the Idaho Department of Lands is responsible for those concerns. After contacting IDL, Ms. Blaylock received an email from Terry Zufelt from IDL, who said, while IDL has the expertise to make comments on this matter, we have not considered it our responsibility or duty to get involved with conditional permits, and that IDL does not have the staffing to comment on private property issues, nor are they inclined to get involved in matters that may result in litigation. Probably a good idea. He did say, however, that having a fuel-mitigated ingress and egress is very important. The KCF Fire Marshal should comment on what this looks like. Well, based on Mr. Archer's statements, I guess we know what it looks like. It looks like fire apparatus lined up along Little Cedar Lane, waiting at pinch points while a fire burns out of control. The primary concern for the county, wildfire risk, was not evaluated by KCFR or IDL. How can you, Mr. Granrath, possibly make a factual finding regarding wildfire risk and the adequacy of evacuation routes when the two agencies responsible for fire suppression in Kootenai County are pointing their fingers at each other? Without a factual basis for assessing the wildfire risk, any decision on the matter becomes arbitrary and capricious. Sheriff Norris is the only one who spoke out against this proposal. In his December 12th letter, he outlined concerns about limited evacuation routes, road congestion from emergency vehicles, and increased demands on sheriff resources during a fire event. I don't know, but I suspect that the sheriff's concern regarding lack of evacuation routes is because, as I said earlier, Little Cedar Lane is the only way in and out of the site. It is well-settled law and acknowledged by planning staff that applicant has the burden here. He must establish that his proposed use complies with County Code 8.8.201C, which requires that the proposal is compatible with existing homes and neighborhoods and with the natural characteristics of the neighborhood, that the proposal adequately addresses site constraints and hazards and adequately mitigates any negative impacts, that services and facilities are available and adequate, and that the proposal is not in conflict with the comprehensive plan. Applicant hasn't done that. He simply hasn't carried his burden. In your remand recommendation, you said the applicant should prepare and comply with an approved fire mitigation and evacuation plan. Applicant has not done that, or if he has, we haven't seen it. Why not? It makes me wonder if there's an unfavorable analysis out there that's being hidden behind an attorney work product privilege. Again, a plan to get a plan is not a plan. Ms. Blaylock's promise that applicant will sign up for the Fire Smart program, as we heard tonight, is really meaningless. As Andrea Littlefield from OEM made clear, one doesn't simply sign up for the Fire Smart program. Its assistance is only available by grant if IDL is working in the area and removing timber. You said Little Cedar Lane will need to be widened to 20 feet and meet all conditions of the 2018 International Fire Code. Yet, we have seen no engineering plans, no plans of any type from applicant as to how he proposes to widen and improve this easement, which belongs to his neighbors as well as to him. You said no parking for event staff or participants may be outside of the designated parking areas. Applicant has provided no plan for handling in excess of the 60 promised parking spots. If there are going to be up to 200 guests and staff, where are the other vehicles going to go? Along the narrow easement? On neighbors' private property? Neither of these options is acceptable. Mr. Granrath, we are not suggesting a quasi-legislative solution that says an applicant can never develop a similar venue in a rural zone. We are simply saying that this proposal, in this proposed location, cannot be safely conditioned to mitigate unalterable site-specific characteristics and hazards. Finally, I would like to address planning staff's calculation of the number of comments submitted regarding this proposal: 10 in support and 371 in opposition, and that's from the first and second go-around. Those are the total numbers. Staff calculated that 78% of the comments came from outside 1 mile of the proposed venue site. I called Mr. Foughty on Monday to ask if his calculation included all responses logged by the county or only the comments logged in opposition. He said his calculation included only opposition comments. This is unfair to the opposition, and frankly, it suggests a county bias in favor of the applicant. The calculation is neither relevant nor material. Fires don't reach a 1 mile marker and throw up their little flame hands and say, oh, we better stop here because we reached the 1 mile mark. The traffic generated from this venue will be primarily on Riverview and Greens Ferry, both of which are over 1 mile from the site. And many of the people here tonight and many of the people who lodged oppositions live off of Riverview and Greens Ferry. Noise generated from the proposed site will actually be funneled up and out of the canyon. Neighbors outside the 1 mile radius have valid concerns. This should not be dismissed by arbitrary planning staff standards. All supportive comments for the CUP come from beyond the 1 mile radius, including some as distant as New Jersey. In summary, the county's documented wildfire risks, combined with this site's remote nature and restricted emergency access, render this project hazardous. I urge you not to compromise our safety or establish a precedent for unsafe commercial development solely for one person's financial benefit. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. All right, I've got our other group presentation. Is that Jonica Week? All right. All right, Weeks, sorry. All right, I'll start reading through the names again. Dustin Weeks, are you here?
The wildland firefighter just got off a fire from Bayview, started last night, human cause, and he had to leave a few minutes ago. Thank you.
Mr. Tarbon, do I need to confirm that everybody is still in the room from that? He was just here.
It sounds like they're willing to replace that individual with somebody else. Is that what I understood?
Yes.
So as long as they still have 10 on the list, I don't see a problem with
Okay,
that.
sorry, I didn't hear that happen. Oh, what was that name? Okay. I'll take a note.
Did you fill out one of these as well? I filled out just a short.
Okay, I'll make it, thank you for doing that. All right, Corey Brown, Tim White, Bailey White, Dana Wood, Jerry Cahoon, Gene Cahoon, Gerda Belknap, Bart Belknap, and Jacob Howlett. All right, thank you all very much. Miss Weeks, go ahead.
I have a late letter that was dropped off to me from a David Blau at 8882 South Linium Lane.
Yeah, we can submit that to the record.
Read into the record as HE 1003. 2003, excuse me.
Can you just read out, can you say out loud what that is real quick, that you just entered? Because she wasn't on the mic. That's a letter from who? Can you just repeat that for me, Miss Weeks?
I'm sorry.
Can you repeat what you just submitted is?
David Blau, it is comments of opposition via letter.
Okay, thanks. Oh, jeez.
Okay. Can you hear me okay? Is that okay?
I
Better?
think so. I can hear you.
Okay, thank you. One more little housekeeping, if I may. Not, I guess not housekeeping, but. Thank you. So I'm requesting to be able to read a comment from a gentleman who contacted me via text, and he gave me permission to share his text. So I printed it up, and I don't have it tonight, but I do have it on my telephone.
Okay, it can be within your 15 minutes, so.
Great. Hello, Jonica. My name is Robin Kimball, and I live on Crystal Bay Road. I wanted you to know I called my comments in this afternoon to the number provided on the bottom of the notice of public hearing feedback form. I'm sharing with you as a backup. I indicated I did not support the applicant request for safety reasons, as well as for the potential infringement via noise and traffic on surrounding homeowners' rights. I evacuated a couple of years ago when Quemlin Park was on fire, so I know how limited access is in and out of this area. It was scary. Additionally, access to the venue off of Greens Ferry looks dangerous even without alcohol involved. Finally, the potential impact on neighbors is substantial. In the early 2000s, one of my neighbors started renting his riverfront home out for wedding receptions and the like. Loud music and voices, not to mention drunken behavior, completely disrupted our street. It culminated with a confrontation that could have ended badly. An immediate neighbor whose wife was going through chemotherapy for her cancer requested celebrants reduce their volume. The response was not polite, and he returned with his gun. Fortunately, no one was hurt, but could have gone a different way. I hope this helps. Thank you. So can I walk with this mic? Okay, so before you I have a poster showing our canyon/drainage, Google Earth, the lower portion, which is the southerly boundary, is at East Riverview. Top portion stops at Ridgeline Drive. Left side stops partway into the Highland Drive, Sundown Ridge location. And the western perimeter stops at the top of Villa Ridge. This canyon, again, okay, sorry. This canyon is approximately 2.07 square miles. The event center location is here. Parking lot is here. And I wanted to briefly talk about noise, the bowl effect, which is impactful. Most of us that live in the canyon experience that regularly. Quick example, the State Line Speedway car racing track is 8.9 miles from our location and 19 minutes drive time. As the crow flies, it's 5.9 miles. Sitting at our home in the evenings, the wind is still, we can hear the cars racing. We can hear when the races stop and start up again. So the bowl effect is clear, it's concise, it's predictable, and consistent. So any noise volume coming from the venue location is going to be significantly louder, consistent. It's going to impact the wildlife and their migration patterns, as well as migratory and nocturnal birds. I can actually hear the neighbors' kids playing outside, 1,200 feet away, not buffered from the vegetation and trees and the bowl effects.
I'm so sorry. This just isn't made to move. So
okay.
If you just put it on there and keep it decent enough,
Okay.
not at your mouth.
Okay.
Sorry, it's not a
So I can hear children playing outside, which is a beautiful noise. But at 12 or 1,300 feet away, we know what's going to happen with loud cars, honking horns, partying, all of that. And it's going to be consistent. It's going to negatively affect us regularly. Every weekend for 25 weekends in a row in our rural zone. This is a rural zone. They're asking for an exception. This is a rural zone, doesn't belong here. Parking lot, concerns about the parking lot. The parking lot at this location, both parking lots are going to be between 80 and 105 feet above the elevation of the venue. And this graphic is showing you that's the equivalent height difference as an 8-story building. The incompatibility at the venue location itself to what their desired effect is incompatible. A 500 to 510 foot walking path so people can ascend and descend without falling down, I believe, is the only way to mitigate this issue. Parking lights are going to be needed. Pathway lights are going to be needed. Folks that can't traverse that height and that length, that's the distance of 1.5 football fields. If they want to go back to their vehicle, can they? So the concern for calls for service are significant. Rolled ankles, knee problems, if somebody wants to leave early, if there's a family emergency, the ability to access your vehicle to get in and out is very, very difficult. It's silly. And you put it up on a map like this and it shows how incompatible our mountain is for a wedding venue in a tight location. Also, the area is approximately 75 feet by 75 feet square where they're going to cram in 200 people. It's a small area because the mountains and the rocks and the steep terrain rule the day. That's just the way it is out in rural communities in our canyon. You can't put a square peg into a round hole, no matter how hard you try. I want to talk briefly about wildlife, and I do have some more exhibits for you, but because of time, I'll just turn them in. We have significant wildlife here. I counted the number of active wildlife game trails all the way from Little Cedar Lane down to Riverview and back, and all the way from Little Cedar Lane back into the venue location and back. I've got photos of each active game trail. We're talking big game trail. Moose, elk, and deer, frequent, regularly. And they're active, that means they're utilized all year round. There were 26 game trails on the west side of the west side of Greens Ferry, and 19 active game trails on the right side. So those game trails are used to access going across the road. And many times, these big game animals leap off of those game trails into the road. We've had 2 vehicle accidents because of that, just recently, the last 3 years. And especially at nighttime, from 10 p.m. on, it's going to be potentially disastrous. And I also included in those photos of the game trails, so let me back up, the game trails on Little Cedar Lane going down into the venue site and back up equates to 27. So we have over 50 active game trails that are used, some of them nearly daily. I included some pictures of, sadly, of moose, elk, and deer vehicle collisions where they have had their legs brought out from underneath them and they slam into windshields. It's scary. It's serious. And for those of us that live there, are vigilant nightly. And so what I would recommend, if you're able to, Mr. Granrath, is to come up and visit the location at night. It's significantly different, and you will be experiencing what all 200 of those guests and staff are going to be experiencing every weekend. To give you a gist of how rural this really is, this just doesn't fit. It just doesn't fit, and it's potentially dangerous for us, for guests, and I recommend you be on your toes when you're on the road in the evening. So please, I would love for you to do that. Give you some perspective, or additional perspective. Thank you. So I want to talk to you more a little bit about compatibility. Ms. Blaylock touched on this as well, so I'm not going to do much repetition, but I will give you my documents. The canyon population, so as far as compatibility and impact, it's high impact in a lot of ways, including the number of people that live there. So if you take a look at this, there are between 85 and 90 homes within this 2.07 mile area. So based on 2 to 3 people per household, if you're looking at 85 to 90, low end of 170 people, high end of 270 people that live here. This CUP request is asking for us to nearly double the population of where we live every single weekend. I would imagine a town of 5,000 people in a wonderful little village or country area would be up in arms if a developer came in and tried to build an outdoor facility with music and gatherings and celebratory occasions to seat 5,000 people coming into their 5,000 populated community every weekend. The comparison is very similar. They're asking to double the population of our community every single weekend for 25 weekends. We're in a rural zone. This is a request for a conditional use permit to bypass what's important to us, our peace, our tranquility, our safety, not to mention a lot of the other aspects that people have brought up in the previous meeting and will do so again tonight. Talk to you briefly about fire. As I stated, a family member was on a fire today, finishing up, mopping up from what started in Bayview last night. Thus far in Kootenai County, my husband works for the Idaho Department of Lands, was with the U.S. Forest Service for 37 years. My son is an active wildland firefighter as well as a lot of folks in the community that live around us are retired fire and LEOs, and God bless them for their service work that they do. That being said, there have been 8 fires just in Kootenai County since January. Most people are unaware of that. Small fires, but fires nonetheless. For the state of Idaho, as of yesterday, April 15th, 2026, since January, 101 active wildfires just in the state of Idaho. Fire season is upon us. And they're mostly human caused. The vast majority of them are human caused, and that's not going to change. It's going to get distinctly worse throughout this season, especially. We had a fire 23 years ago in what is now Bella Ridge, and it was a 3-acre fire contained, thankfully, by a gentleman that started a spring burn pile, thought he had it under control, and then mid-June or mid-July, all of a sudden it smoldered and picked back up. That's referred to as a holdover. And it was right across the road from our house, again, currently where Bella Ridge is located. We also had somebody, their vehicle caught on fire at 11 o'clock at night, but the car was damaged. They got out and started walking up the mountain, and then it caught on fire. Thank goodness my neighbors saw that, and the fire department came up. We've had all kinds of different fire events. I also want to bring up, I've got a graphic about the Settlers Creek fire. My son was on that fire as well back in 2017. It was an accidental fire. Gladly, no one got hurt. It burned 40 acres. It started with a barn, but it burned 40 acres because wind and creep through the grass and the brush, and it was contained, but it was an accidental fire started by cooking in the barn. And again, accidental could be one of the 200 guests accidentally dropping something, a boyfriend running up to the car to have a cigarette and flick it out, somebody who tosses a vape with the lithium batteries that are leaving the facility on our property. And a month later, the lithium battery activates and deteriorates from the sun, and then we have another fire starting. So there are lots of fires. I would like to remind you too of Firestorm 1991, if you were in the area. Between 50 and 60,000 acres burned, 114 homes were burned down, and 2 people lost their lives. We were out at Hauser Lake. I got evacuated from my home in Hauser with my little boy. I could see fire coming over the mountain. My parents got evacuated from Dishomica Hills, and my husband was on a 24-hour firefighting shift, along with every other emergency personnel that were available. Firestorm started October 17th because we have high winds in October. This venue is wanting to run from May through October. So I just wanted to remind people of that. So fire is a huge issue. We can't control 200 people and what they do. Having been married into a firefighting family, I still do this. July and August, I sleep with my windows open, even with air conditioning. I sleep with my windows open, even with air conditioning. Do you know why? Where we live, fire danger is real. I want to be able to wake up to the smell of smoke. We don't even leave. We typically don't go anywhere over the weekends because fire danger is so high. And we desire to live in that area, and we place that risk and sacrifice upon ourselves, but we take it extremely seriously. If this venue is approved, our public safety and the public safety of the 200 guests each weekend is at risk. The pinch points that Ms. Blaylock already discussed is significant. Pinch points are entrapment zones. People die if there's pinch points. That's just a reality. And I'd like to comment on Sheriff Norris's evacuation. He's looking at the bigger picture. It's not the evacuation point out of Little Cedar Lane. It's if the canyon starts on fire, either from Little Cedar or a resident up in Cougar Gulch or somebody down below in Highland or Bella Ridge. He has to evacuate 95 homes. He has to evacuate 167 homes down in the Driftwood neighborhood. And he's got to evacuate potentially people up in Cougar Gulch that are coming from the Coeur d'Alene side. The ability to do that is almost impossible if you only have 3 evacuation points. The first one is the top here, over the top of Cougar Gulch. The second and third one are left and right on Riverview, and that's it. So if there's 167 homes, we've been given an evacuation warning like we were at stage 3 evacuation for Quinlan Parkway fire. Then you've got 167 homes, vehicles, at least 167, trying to get out down on Riverview already. Fires happen, people get stuck, and they burn up in their cars if there's no place to go. So it's real, it's significant, and I do appreciate you hearing me out on that. I want to talk to you about lighting.
Yeah, and that was your 15-minute timer, so if you can make one final point, please.
Sure. Generators, open frame generators required for lighting that my presumption are going to be used for up there, 80 to 90 decibels is the range. Not the small portables won't work. The Generac style at homes don't work. There needs to be sufficient lighting up there so that people aren't falling off cliffs. So I would like to end this, if I may. Kootenai County Land Use and Development Code, Article 1, Section 81-103. The purpose in B is to protect and promote property rights and enhance property values while also ensuring that the use of property does not duly interfere with the lawful use and enjoyment of others. The Mitchell Event Center is incompatible. It doesn't follow suit with the Land Use and Development Code, nor the goals of the comprehensive plan, and I hope you visit the site, and upon all of your readings and diligent research you do tonight, that you'll deem this extremely incompatible, a problem when it comes to public safety, and that you will deny this CUP request. Thanks for your time.
Okay, thank you very much.
Exhibits read into the record is HE 2004.
right, thanks everyone. Going to move to the individual public comment portion. I've got quite a few here. So again, if you could try to keep your comments under 3 minutes, but I will do a hard stop at 5 minutes. So up first, I have Frank Foster.
Testing, testing. Can everyone hear me? Okay. Oh, all right, no problem. I've prepared some statements as well. I don't know if we want to put those into record. They've been said by most everyone here already, but I want to add some additional comments, if I may. So I think the wildfire point is very well documented. Everyone has been speaking at continued cadence about that risk. I think just looking at this, some additional data and information, and this is from the Idaho Department of Land's wildfire data. On that south side of the river, we've also had 24 documented fires between 2017 and 2025, ranging from 0.7 to 5,000 acres burned. So that's just additional evidence that Department of Lands is considering this, an area of concern. Sorry, I'm a little nervous because it's the first time I've done this, so I might be a little shaky. Thank you, everybody. It was kind of funny because a lot of the CUP requirements spoken as well were things that I had put up, but I believe that I want to re-emphasize the incompatibility with the CUP requirement findings and how it's connected to the comprehensive plan. Let me find my notes here super quick. Apologies. Like I said, I wrote a little bit too much. So the comprehensive plan's property rights element, which is policy 3, calls for protecting property owners by increasing permitted by rights use and decreasing conditional uses. This CUP goes directly against that. So its hazard areas goal is to plan development in natural and man-made hazardous areas to strictly protect life, property, and general welfare. So approving a 200-person venue or 150-person venue in the county's highest-ranked hazard zone contradicts this. Idaho's code 67-6512 requires that a CUP must not be in conflict with the plan. So I think that's important to bring up.
I'm sorry, what was that first code that you read from?
Here we go. This is the Kootenai County Comprehensive Plan, Property Rights Policy 3 of 3, Hazardous Areas, Appendix 17, page 45, and Appendix 73, page 99. And I do have a copy of my notes I could submit as well.
That would be great after you're done, so don't let me interrupt you again. So.
No, I appreciate it. So that is one big area. And the other component I want to put out there as well is the rural nature of our area. I haven't heard anybody mention this either, but with Greens Ferry being the road that it is, we live right off of Greens Ferry. In fact, we can see the planned land from our home. We live closer than Norris does. He's there off of Greens Ferry as well. Something that people haven't talked about too is just the nature of how a lot of people use it for recreation. We have people who own horses, who own livestock, who are moving them up and down the street. We've had an occasional cow go running loose on that road. I'm sure everybody's seen it before. But this is an area that on the weekends people are recreating on that road or near that road with horses. And you add that increased traffic, you add that increased presence of people. I don't think you can deny that cars and horses generally are at odds with one another. Pairing that, we also have, someone else mentioned the increase in population. that could also be an increase in crime. So you can consider people might be concerned about increase of individuals in those events. We don't know what people are going to do. We don't know how they're going to treat other people's property. And that's just a consideration. I have 3 children. They're learning to ride bikes, and they'd love to go down Greens Ferry or down those roads and ride their bikes. And I know I would be concerned for their safety when it comes to riding anywhere close to an event venue with that number of people. In addition to that, I want to talk for a moment about the zoning, because we've kind of already established that this is a rural zone. And by establishing an environment like this, or a business like this, would be a spot zoning for commercial use. There are areas that are zoned for this type of thing, but again, rural is not it. Yeah, I'm just trying to find my next point here. I think that, the real problem is I had a nice long thing to say and everyone else stole my points, so thank you. Yeah, I think just in closing, I just want to double down and additionally say, I support all of the previous comments. I think that they're all salient. I think that even just the presence of this many people at this hearing in opposition is enough evidence that it's not wanted or not needed. So, in conclusion, that's what I'd like to say.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
I'll take it. Read into the record, HE 2005.
Okay, Rodney Weeks.
Oh, you can give me the map. How does that sound, everybody? Good. Good evening, Mr. Hearing Advisor. My name's Rodney Weeks, for the record. I've been in wildland fire for 40 years, still present. You were talking some questions. I can probably answer most of those questions, but I'm going to go into different things in this. I predicted fire behavior in this. We're using its behavior plus, far sight, and nomograms. And it predicts in this canyon. All this canyon is all timber. Within an hour, it's going to burn my home across that if it gets into this with high rating heat. We go by weather, topography, and fuels. We put this in a program, it's a computer program, and it lays out what the fire is going to do. And Little Cedar Lane comes in, you can see right by my house and over to the Flams and Woods, right next to it. This fire crosses that Little Cedar Lake according to these programs, and these are predictions. I haven't seen any predictions out there what this fire is going to do, but it's going to rapidly go up this canyon. We call it a chute chimney. What that does, that fire goes up in that canyon, and it's going to cross those lanes up to Starlight and across Green Ferry over into Bella Ridge. This is hell. This is fire. I lived this. I've been in 40 states fighting fire, also canyon, and I've seen this happen. You know what happened? People die in there when this situation. Firefighters in danger, EMS in danger, the sheriff's department in danger. I have to see this. This is not even an evacuation plan. This is death. There's one way in, and there's no alternative routes out of there. Whoever says there's routes out there, I lived there for 25 years. There is no route out of there. And it's all landlocked. There you have to have an escape route out of there. None. That's going to be a cremation site for 200 people if you allow this to happen. I've seen it. I've been it. I witnessed death in these places. 40 years of it. Anyway, these predictions are there. I haven't seen any prediction. Wherever there's predictions out, I want them to challenge my prediction. These are fire. This is scientific method that tells you what that fire is going to do. And the smoke in there afterwards is dangerous. You try to get people out of there, you're not going to be able to get out of there. These firefighters wouldn't have. I'm an instant commander for 25 years, national team. You can't evacuate people out of this. There's no plan to evacuate people out of this. Absolutely not. I've seen people die in this. It's not fair for firefighters, for EMS, or the sheriff's department to deal with something like this. This is a rural setting. People's families are in there. everybody in here, I'm backing up. They are going to die in there if this fire gets bigger, and it will happen. It's just when. I'm just saying that. For the record, I appreciate that. I got some notes. I got some prediction if you need it, but they're right here. I could talk all day about the methodology about this. I live this every day. Dangerous.
Please submit it.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
I hope
Read into the record, HE 2006.
Is that Roy or Roe Eli? Sorry, I'm terrible at reading handwriting.
Is this good? My name is Roy Ely. I live at 2596 Greens Ferry Road, and our property is contingent with the Mitchell property. Somebody said at the beginning of this that there was a fear-based pamphlet going around, and I am telling you, I haven't read it, but I am here because I'm afraid. I'm very concerned about the impact this proposed event center will have on our neighborhood and our personal lives. But today I'm just going to talk about Little Cedar Road again, which is co-owned by my husband and I and Jeff and Dana Wood. And this is the road that is used to access the Mitchell House and the potential event center. I've taken pictures of the road in its current state. These pictures will be attached to my statement. But my first picture right here is a picture of the potholes that exist right now on the road. And the second picture right here is a picture of the rivulets going down the road caused by rainwater running down. And the reason it's so bad is because the gravel that was formerly there has been scraped off by the necessary use of a snowplow for the Mitchells to get to and from their house when it snows. Even if this road is widened, my ongoing concern is who's going to do the necessary maintenance to keep it in the kind of condition necessary for 50 to 60 cars on multiple weekends during the event season, given the condition it's in now, when it's only used primarily by the Mitchells. And who's going to pay for this maintenance? There has been zero discussion with the co-owners of the road on how and when the maintenance will take place and who will pay for it. That's kind of a concern as well. The next pictures I've got here are taken where the site of the parking lot is going to be. I've attempted, picture number 3 attempts to show the steep drop-off from the road where there will have to be literally thousands and thousands of pounds of dirt dumped and then tamped down to create a flat space for cars. How will the construction of this parking lot, with many large trucks necessary to carry the dirt and the construction, what is that going to do to the condition of the road? Is that going to be done before or after the road is fixed up and widened? I don't know. And how is it possible that a site plan for 48 cars now is suddenly big enough for 58 cars on the same footprint? And if they're crowded in like that, and should there need to be a quick exit, how are those cars going to get in and out easily? Or are they going to need to be done one by one, which is something that happens often in crowded parking lots? Pictures 4 and 5 are just pictures of how densely the undergrowth is in this forested area. And it's important to pay attention to dense undergrowth for 3 reasons. Undergrowth, I also heard this called vegetative creep. Undergrowth has a tendency to grow back every year. Will the area be monitored, pruned, and cleared regularly, including the 4-foot wide, 900-foot long gravel path down to the wedding site? And just an aside, it continues to be difficult for me to see a wedding guest in wedding garb and 4-inch heels walking 900 feet on a gravel path to get to the event site. And the second reason to consider the undergrowth is that this 900 feet is the perfect time and place for a smoker to have a quick smoke before they get to the event. And this is what it's going to look like when they have a cigarette butt in their hand and need to get rid of it. And that, to me, cannot be mitigated. You can't take away all of the undergrowth between the parking lot and the event center without it creeping back and becoming even more of a fire hazard. Guests to this event will probably not be schooled in the necessity of being careful about fire prevention. All of the mitigation in the world is not going to stop unaware individuals who are not being supervised being careless with fire hazards like cigarette butts. What good is a fire mitigation plan if there are a lot of people traversing an area where they're not supervised? The third reason to consider these pictures is that they are of dense forest, and that is the nature of our land out here. Putting a parking lot with space for 58 cars in the middle of a thick forest is definitely not compatible with the quiet rural nature of our area. The Kootenai Comprehensive Plan makes it clear that new structures should be compatible with the homes, buildings, and businesses in the area, and I have a hard time accepting that a large parking lot in the middle of a forest can be considered compatible with our current neighborhood. And then what happens if this event center does not succeed? What's going to happen to the parking lot? Who's going to maintain the water that's supposed to be draining off of it? And what if the foundation of the parking lot erodes when the vegetation creep goes in? And our property abuts where the parking lot would end, and I can see that sliding into our property.
That was your 5 minutes, ma'am.
That was my 5 minutes. Thank you kindly.
Thank you.
Thank you. Read into the record is HE 2007.
And so just for everyone's, the first alarm that goes off is the 3 minutes, and the second one is the 5 minutes, so that everybody knows that. Okay, Scott Samways.
Read into the records HE 2008.
Turn that so I can see it as well.
Well, good evening, Mr. Grandwrath. Scott Samways here. I live at 11335. I live at 11335 West Bella Ridge. As I said at the first public hearing, I would rather not be here, as I prefer not to intrude in others' business. But after visiting the venue site and seeing the dirt road accessing the proposed center, I need to make my concerns known. As a 30-year retired fire captain, I feel qualified to address issues regarding ingress and egress from a fire department perspective. The Mitchells seek approval to create an event center in this rural zone. Unfortunately, it will create a hazardous condition for all attendees and neighbors. They plan for 25 events per season with up to 200 individuals per event. Thus, we can expect 5,000 attendees every 6 months in our quiet rural neighborhood. This is a lot of people to manage with varying characteristics and personalities. The proposed venue is slated to be outdoors, and with up to 5,000 people attending per season, there will be many opportunities for fires. People will be smoking cigarettes or other substances, chafing fuels and/or grills will be used to prepare food, and candles will likely be used, all in the middle of a fire zone, surrounded by brush and trees. Also on site is an older log-style residence. All of this makes a structure or forest fire entirely possible. The proposed event center is in a wildfire urban interface zone with severe fire risk. If a fire occurs during an event with 200 people, getting in and out of the venue will become extremely difficult. People will be scrambling to vacate the venue, running down the long parking lot trail, only to clog up the parking lot and the dirt leading out of the woods. They will encounter incoming emergency response vehicles trying to reach the emergency, with many spots on the narrow road where an automobile and a fire engine will have extreme difficulty passing each other. I'd like to talk for a moment about ladder fuels and why it doesn't matter if the residence is occupied or not. It's all about those fuel situations and how both the structure and surrounding vegetation are equally susceptible to combustion. As we all know, fires are very easy to start and can get out of control quickly. So as I previously mentioned, there could be up to 5,000 attendees over the season. At each event, people will be milling around, walking back to the parking lot or wherever their cars are parked, wandering off into the woods and trespassing onto my neighbor's property. This is where fire issues begin. People are not like sheep. Each one has their own thoughts and moods. Some are more careless or deliberate. This is where ladder fuels come into play. Almost all fires require some sort of ladder fuel to progress into a large fire. They usually start with small flammable materials, add an ignition source, and then spread into larger materials until an out-of-control large fire is reached. In wildland areas such as this venue location, sources of ignition could include discarded cigarette butts, marijuana joints or bong bowls still hot, vape pens with lithium batteries, arson, children playing with matches, down-powered lines or sparks from damaged electrical cords, vehicle-related sources, lightning strikes, and many, many more. Here's what we can expect. One of those sources of ignition starts a single blade of dry grass, which grows into a patch of grass. That starts a small brush fire that in turn starts a larger one that's big enough to reach a low-hanging tree branch. This tree takes off and sets a fire to 2 others, then 4, then 8, and you now have a forest fire. Add some wind to this location, and it is time to call in a fire department strike team with helicopters and fixed-wing air tankers. A residential structure, occupied or not, is just as susceptible as the tree, as both are combustible and unable to move away from the fuel. At a wedding or event venue, typical fuels we could expect to find stacked near the log home are open piles of paper or trash from vendors that are in a rush to provide their services, cardboard boxes used to hold paper plates, plastic glasses, silverware, and napkins, bagged trash holding these items after being removed by servers, dumpsters or trash cans that were pushed alongside the structure to get them out of the way, pallets for transporting
That is
tables
your,
and chairs.
I'm sorry, sir, but that is your 5 minutes.
Okay.
Do you have a closing thought? But that is,
Well, of course I did. Okay, all right.
if you'd like to submit your writings to the record, I'm willing to read it as well.
I'm sorry, sir?
If you'd like to submit that to the record, we can. Oh, okay. I will read it.
Okay, all right, thank you very much.
Thank you. Naomi Shively.
Read into the record as HE 2009.
A little nervous about getting involved with this microphone. Okay, good evening. My name is Naomi Shively, and I live in the Bella Ridge Resort. Actually, I live in the Bella Ridge subdivision. I'm trying to modify a little bit, not to be too repetitive, but my comments tonight concern the status of issues raised. My background is in executive leadership. I spent decades at corporate officer level for billion-dollar companies. I've co-owned a business consulting firm, and I also served as president of the board of directors for a social services agency. My entire career revolved around evaluating proposals, assessing risk, and determining whether an organization had the planning, accountability, and operational capacity to safely execute what it was asking approval to do. And just to be really direct, an employer or vendor that ever brought me a proposal like this, with this many missing plans, this many unresolved risks, and this many we'll hire someone later placeholders, I wouldn't have approved it. But this is exactly, however, what the hearing examiner, you, and the county are being asked to do here. The county cannot make the required findings without comprehensive plans that are enforceable. Yet the applicant, as others have said, has not provided a comprehensive plan for evacuation, fire mitigation, traffic, parking, noise, resolution of the private easement issues, or widening and improvement of the access road. There are simply a series of promises that plans will be created after approval. Let me share just a few examples. We've talked about noise management and how the venue sits in a natural bowl. The applicant's plan for noise, and I quote, and I think it was discussed here tonight, but the whole plan is noise levels will be measured once music commences at a 30-minute interval until 10 p.m., at which time operations will cease. That's it. No next steps, no staffing plan, no training plan, no equipment details, and no action specified if limits are exceeded. The applicant initially refused your recommendation for the decibel level. I see that tonight maybe he's agreed to it now. Regarding traffic and road safety, we've talked about that Little Cedar Lane is not a commercial corridor. You noted that the easement legality must be resolved before approval. It has not been. The examiner also noted that Little Cedar Lane must be widened. No engineering plan's been submitted. Greens Ferry Road is a rural road designed for residential traffic, not event surges of 200 people arriving and departing. The applicant's entire plan is traffic management event staff will be present during events to direct vehicles into designated parking areas and ensure emergency access routes always remain unobstructed. No information on qualifications for staff, training of staff, equipment to be used, and so on. Without actual plans, the county cannot evaluate safety or adequacy of services, and without measurable conditions, the county can't enforce compliance. Regarding parking, I think some of us, others have discussed, but it's a lot of requirements for that, but the applicant now proposes 58 or 60 parking spaces for up to 200 people. There's no roadside parking, there's no overflow plan. Without adequate parking and detailed plans, the impacts simply can't be mitigated. Throughout the process, the applicant repeatedly said, we'll hire a professional later, we'll develop a plan later, we'll figure out mitigation later. But CUPs are not based on intentions, and compatibility cannot be achieved by stacking conditions on top of plans that do not exist. If the county approves this CUP without actual plans, you can't enforce what you cannot see, you cannot evaluate what does not exist, you cannot mitigate risks that have not been analyzed. The applicant has already taken 10 months to create comprehensive plans, and yet they are not done. Today, the hearing examiner is being asked to recommend our county commissioners approve a high-risk commercial operation in a rural residential area located in an area with high risk for wildfires in a canyon at the end of a narrow dead-end road not designed for commercial use without comprehensive plans necessary to evaluate safety, legality, enforceability, or compatibility. For these reasons, I respectfully ask that this CUP be denied. Thank you.
Thank you. Roger Shively.
Thank you for the time. My name is Roger Shively, and I live in Bella Ridge Subdivision. I'm here to talk about the compatibility issue surrounding this CUPS proposal. I have 8 points that show this proposal is not appropriate for approval. My first point is a big change in daily life. An event center will introduce frequent gatherings of strangers to our area and ongoing activity instead of occasional use. This shifts the neighborhood from a place where people live to include a place where people visit for events. The second point is a change from private to public atmosphere. Our rural neighborhood is inherently private and residential. An event center creates a destination, bringing in large numbers of unfamiliar people. This changes how it feels to live here. There's less sense of seclusion and less comfort in our own space. My third point is a loss of rural identity. A defining feature of our neighborhood is low density and tranquility. Introducing an event venue shifts the identity to include entertainment use and a social gathering hub. Once that identity changes, it's very hard to bring it back. My fourth point is erosion of neighborly character. An event center introduces a rotating flow of outsiders and activity that doesn't contribute to community relationships. Our sense of a tight-knit, respectful environment is diluted. My fifth point is evening and nighttime impacts. The most valued time for us in the neighborhood is evenings and nights. This is when events usually occur. Instead of winding down, we would endure activity peaks and lingering noise and presence. This directly conflicts with the rhythm of a peaceful rural lifestyle. My sixth point, ongoing, not occasional disruption. This is not a one-time rare occurrence. Events are scheduled to be repeated weekly on weekends. This means disruption becomes a regular part of life, not an exception. 7 is a peace as a shared community expectation. People who moved in here did so with an implicit understanding. That understanding is that the neighborhood would remain peaceful, quiet, and low activity. Approving this breaks that shared expectation and changes the social contract of our neighborhood. My last point, number 8, is the loss of the enjoyment of quiet. We chose the neighborhood specifically for peace and quiet, natural soundscapes like wind and birds and other wildlife. Even a well-managed event center is going to bring music and voices and announcements, car doors, engines, and late-night departures. The issue isn't just loudness, it's the frequent interruption of silence we are accustomed to in our neighborhood. These things are not fixable. You can't stop the noise, you can't stop the traffic from coming and going, and so on. So these issues, I think, show that this CUP proposal is undeniably not compatible with our neighborhood. Thank you.
Devalu Cummings.
Thank you. Hi. Read into the record as HE 2010.
Good evening. My name is Davalou Cummings. My husband and I live at 8681 West Taurus Court, which is located 1/2 mile straight line uphill from the proposed event center. And from the commentary earlier, we are in that chimney. And there's also some residents that live up in that chimney with me that are in the audience tonight. We, my husband and I, oppose the approval of this permit. You've already heard, or will continue to hear during this meeting, from homeowners and residents who are deeply concerned about multiple aspects of this proposed event venue. Among the most serious of those concerns is our continual talk about fire risk. This is not simply a concern for those who live here. It is one the applicants themselves should share. Their lives, the lives of their children, their neighbors, and every person attending an event at their venue would be at risk. In this setting, a fire could ignite and move quickly uphill, leaving event attendees potentially fatally trapped and provide little time for evacuation for surrounding residents. Under those conditions, lives, homes, and everything we have worked for could be lost in moments. This is not speculation. It is very real and a foreseeable risk that deserves careful weight in your decision. This concern has even been expressed by Kootenai County Sheriff Bob Norris and echoed by the wildland firefighter who observed this area and presented earlier to you. The reality is stark. Under those conditions, lives, homes, and personal property could be lost in a matter of moments. This is not a speculative fear. It is a foreseeable risk that must be taken seriously when evaluating whether this proposal is appropriate for this location. This is a fact-based concern, as was said earlier. I feel that there have been commentary that it's a flippant dismissal of what a fire fear or a true fire risk and fire danger in this situation is. I'm not a wildland firefighter, nor do I have expertise in that area. But in a professional capacity, I have seen what the tragedy and impact caused by fire does, what it looks like in pictures, the lives that it takes. And I had cause to deal with the Twisp fire in the state of Washington, which was a tremendous loss of property and loss of life, even of firefighters, when the fire turned on them and took their lives and rendered one of the firefighters with problems that he will live with for the rest of his life. At the last hearing, there was significant opposition to this proposal. What you're hearing today reflects that same reality. Residents who live here remain overwhelmingly opposed. I reviewed the written public comments submitted after that hearing, and the pattern is the same strong, consistent opposition. What I would note is that the commentary in favor of this is typically submitted by friends, people in business relationships with the applicants, and only one individual that I saw who provided their address, and many people didn't, lived anywhere near to the proposed site. I don't know the applicants personally. I do not question their character or the sincerity of those who support them, but I respectfully ask the greater weight be given to the voice of those who live in and around the event center area, whose daily lives, homes, and safety will be directly affected. If you had the opportunity to visit our neighborhood, you would understand what is truly at stake. These are not just parcels on a map. These are homes that have been cared for over decades. They're gardens and forests nurtured with time and love, places where wildlife moves freely, raises their young, where people have raised their families, and where people like my husband and I have worked our entire lives to buy this land and build our forever home. It's not just property. This event center would fundamentally change that. It would introduce regular large-scale gatherings, bring thousands of guests into our area, and cause all the potential problems that have already been mentioned, that are mentioned in this document that I will leave with you. This event center is fundamentally not compatible with the surrounding community, and I respectfully ask that you deny this application. This is not about just a project, but about protecting our way of life and a safe environment and the homes that we've all worked so long for. I also made a note that I didn't prepare in my written comments. I was concerned that during the presentation, there was a discussion about where there might be permanent facilities built in the future. That is a considerable concern to me, that this initial plan is just that, it's initial. And there's going to be creep, and once they get something approved, if they do, that we will then see more intrusion into our rural lifestyle, and it's not compatible. Thank you.
Thank you.
Read into the record is HE 2011.
Stephen Tanner.
My name is Steve Tanner. My address is 2596 South Greens Ferry Road. We own the property adjacent to the Mitchell property, and we also own a home on Little Cedar Lane, and we're part of the road agreement with the other two landowners. I believe that approval, if granted, should include a requirement the applicant to bring the access road up to highway district standards and to have the district accept it for maintenance, and to also include a secondary emergency access road. The access as it now exists is woefully substandard. Most of it is an unpaved, poorly maintained, single-lane, dead-end road with short stretches that are, at best, a lane and a half. It is approximately a mile long. As stated by John Magnuson, the applicant's attorney, the road does have adequate width of right-of-way to allow it to be at highway district standards. He further states that any cost necessary to improve the road for commercial purposes authorized by a CUP will be the Mitchells. The existing access road is simply not suitable for the proposed use. As the sheriff stated in his written testimony, in the event of a fire, the limited evacuation access creates a very significant concern for public safety and emergency response. In addition to being narrow, for most of the year, the existing road surface is rutted and muddy, and any heavy vehicle like an ambulance or a fire truck would have difficulty using it. The application is for up to 200 attendees and staff at a time. The Bella Ridge subdivision across Greens Ferry Road has 36 lots. I believe that during an event, the applicant would create a traffic load at least equal to that of Bella Ridge. And it's worth noting that the Bella Ridge development is provided with not only a highway district maintained road, paved road, but access through a secondary emergency exit road. I don't think it was any accident that this platted subdivision was platted with 60-foot wide easements. That's typically the requirement for the Post Falls Highway District. And I think the intent of that was to upgrade the road when it became necessary to do that, to meet highway district standards. And I think this is the time when that road needs to be upgraded. And I think it should be paid for by the applicant as recommended by the applicant's attorney. Thank you.
Thank you.
Read into the record is AG 2012.
Brett Ulich, or Ulick.
Good evening, Mr. Hearing Examiner. My name is Brett Ulick, and I'm a resident at 5893 South Greens Ferry Road, the head of the chimney where the fire would go, about 2.5 miles from the venue. My wife and I moved to Cougar Gulch and Greens Ferry Road in 2019. Let me start by saying that my wife and I are 100% against this attempt to modify the CUP by the Mitchells in order to build an event center in our community. This plan will completely ruin our personal safety along with the peaceful ambience and personal sanctity of the hundreds of residents that live there, along with our precious wildlife. We all moved to this area to get away from the urban sprawl and associated noise with living in the city. We absolutely do not want this in our backyards because it will ruin our quiet and peaceful rural setting. And an interesting fact that, talking about all the fire danger, my wife and I just lost our homeowners policy through Safeco Liberty Mutual last year. We got a letter that Cougar Gulch and a fire district is a 9 out of 10 threat. So they canceled us. So the fire danger is a real fact. I was a deputy for 30 years, deputy sheriff for 30 years. Upon retiring, I worked also in private security for 5 years. These venues or wedding events are fraught with issues that most lay people do not understand. I was sent on numerous calls for service to these private events, such as the center of the Mitchells are proposing, and they are one big problem after another for the surrounding neighborhood and community. Drunkenness from overserving of alcohol, drug use, gang fights, family fights, and vandalism to the surrounding neighborhood is a reality. And that's just a short list of the serious issues that can happen at these events. I've seen it hundreds of times in my career. The violence, too, will be an issue. Let me tell you, there will be fights, brawls, loud disturbances, and possible violent encounters leading to stabbings and potential shootings. I worked a number of these same small wedding venues that turned into the most violent incidents I've ever had to deal with in my life, from acute drug and alcohol intoxication. You combine that with the unique situation in human psychology, the crowded events often lead to violence, not only for the people attending these events, but also law enforcement that has to come in behind on a narrow road, respond in an emergency, and deal with the ultimate fights and disturbances that are going to happen. Guaranteed, if this permit is allowed, it's going to be a nightmare for our sheriff's department. Alcohol is a powerful emotional disinhibitor that can cause violent tendencies and increase impulsive, reckless actions. It also diminishes self-control. Anyway, in closing, I'm just saying that this CUP is a commercial event. You can paint it whatever you want, put lipstick on a pig. It's a commercial event in a rural zone that will interrupt our quality of life. Thank you.
Thank you.
Read into the record is HE 2013.
Scott Ferguson.
I just have one question, and that question is, we keep hearing that the Mitchells are so community-oriented. How come 227 concerns and the needs of all the people in our neighborhood are being dismissed for their sake? That's it.
Kathy Kowalski.
Good evening. My name's Kathy Kowalski. I reside at 5901 South Greens Ferry Road. I'm here to oppose approval of this conditional use permit application. To me, it seems incomplete. I think he should probably get a refund because it doesn't seem that there's been adequate work done by the agency that he's hired to make sure that you have the information you need to make a professional judgment on this plan. You know, we hear names of departments of Idaho Department of Lands, fire mitigation, but the reality is no one is taking accountability to determine, no agency, what the rules are. What is a mitigation plan? I'm a business owner. If I had hired a consultant to help me expand my business and they said, well, I called in December and once and I didn't get a call back, I'd be like, we got a problem. Because the reality is this is incompatible with the topography of this site, with the neighborhood, with the traffic needs. You know, the pictures don't even show what Greens Ferry's like. The incline, the 6% incline, and the windy roads, and motorcyclists, and the bicyclists, and the walkers, and the people who ride the horses that are on this road every day, especially on the weekends when these events are going to be out here. The sounds, all of the challenges that come with this type of event center, it's completely incompatible with this neighborhood. The reality is I know that the county team looked at it, but they have very limited things that they're looking at. And it's clear that there's gaps in the county processes. When you don't know who's responsible for determining and approving a fire mitigation plan in the most dangerous fire area we have in the county, that's a problem, not just for this application, but frankly, for how we operate and how we approve things in this county for our residents. I'm very, very concerned about this impacting property values. Do you think all of these properties, even within 2 miles of this area, that they're still going to be highly sought after and valued for their rural nature, for their quiet, peaceful peaceful atmosphere. That's why this property has such great value. That's why they want to put an event center there, because it's a beautiful, peaceful, quiet area. That will be destroyed with the approval of this plan. Our property values will go down, and the safety for the residents and the attendees cannot be ensured. The reality is that this plan's not complete. You don't have a fire mitigation plan to review. You don't have evacuation plans to review. You don't have even plans on what would be the consequences if the volume goes up above what they say they're going to measure. What will be the outcomes for that? There are not sufficient plans, and as such, I think it should be returned back and not approved. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we're moving into the may wish to speak, so I'm going to call you out, and you can decide whether you like to speak. So going back first to Dennis Waterman, do you wish to speak? If you're still here. Sarah Loader may wish to speak.
No, thank you.
Taylor Kowalski may wish to speak.
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Okay, hello. I actually already submitted a written comment, so I just want to make an addendum based on the information presented here, because I feel like the additional information from the applicant and the different companies they hired have not actually sufficiently addressed the concerns expressed by the community. The first point, everyone keeps citing an International Fire Code from 2018. I looked it up while I was sitting there because I'd never heard of it. It's a paywall PDF, so I'm very concerned that so much is hinging upon the way this particular legislation is written when it seems to be state-specific, and it's also not accessible to the public without paying a fee. So I feel like the applicant should make that publicly available for public comment, so we all have the same information to work from. Additionally, I would question the logic if apparently the IFC requires two forms of ingress slash egress from an area that has 30 parcels. How increasing the parking would make a single egress sufficient for their purposes. It seems contradictory to everything that they're citing, but I couldn't read it myself to ascertain that. I also want to point out that the information from Mrs. Block, I apologize if I said that wrong, about the foliage absorbing sound has misleading imagery because it shows a very dense forest, but the Bella Ridge side of the road across from this property is not forested in. It's just going to completely travel across the road. It's a little plain with very sparse trees. So I don't think that was an accurate representation of the topography. I also want to point out that there's no means to enforce a decibel limit outside of city limits. There's no legislation around it. I had a neighbor actually try to run a wedding venue that ended up being shut down because they didn't have the use permits. And when I called the county sheriff about concerns about the volume, which was not particularly, they weren't trying to be obnoxious. They were actually trying to be considerate, but the shape of the valley made it impossible for them to limit the way that sound carried to their neighbors. I've met these people. They're incredibly kind and decent, but their personal decency didn't change the impact that their business had upon the neighborhood. I would also point out that 60 decibels, which has been confirmed in this hearing, is the sound of a single person talking. That's me talking right now. I'm not sure if 200 people will take turns to speak. Like, it doesn't make sense logically. So I think that needs to be reviewed. I'll also point out there's no enforcement on lighting outside of the city limits. Again, I had a neighbor that had a light that was pointed dangerously toward the road, and because it was, and by dangerously I mean it was extremely bright, and at night it was like another headlight coming at you. It was difficult to see beyond it, so it was difficult to see if there was any wildlife that may come into the roadway. Anyone local knows the risk of that. And when I called the Worley Highway District, because it's on the Coeur d'Alene side, that's their jurisdiction, because it was behind a wall, they couldn't actually do anything about it. They had no enforcement over it. I just had to rely on asking the neighbor kindly to angle their light so it wouldn't blind people at night. And they complied. They didn't do it intentionally. But we're having to rely on people that we don't really know that they will do things they say when they haven't done the purpose of this meeting, which is to present a complete plan. Right now, their plan requires us to subsidize their business through decreased property values, the increased cost through taxes of road maintenance on either side, because we're going to have people from Coeur d'Alene or Post Falls using that same exact Greens Ferry Road to access that area. And the last point I would like to make about wildfire is that if there happens to be wildfire on the Post Falls side of that lane, then you have 200 extra people trying to get up Greens Ferry Road over the mountain, in addition to everyone living on Greens Ferry, Cougar Gulch, Meadowbrook, Thompson Road. It's a large amount of people, and adding yet more is intrinsically dangerous to us. We do have a fear of fire, but it is not hysterical. It's based in the reality that we live here knowing that we have to be ready to up and go at any point in the summer, that we get an app notification that we may lose our homes. So, yeah, that's everything I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Reading in Jonica Weeks' statement, HE 2014.
Michael Gutend, or may wish to speak. Okay, thank you. Kirk David may wish to speak.
I'm trying to be brief. There's been tons and tons of technical reasons and safety reasons and quality of life reasons why this large amount of people have come to make their concerns known multiple times. But I would just like to say that I can pretty much guarantee that all of the folks in this neighborhood are welcoming of the Mitchells in their neighborhood as a domicile, but not to bring their commercial, inappropriate business into the midst of this neighborhood. Thank you.
Was that Valine Stoll or Raylene? All right, hearing no one. Okay. Rick Hudson may wish to speak.
I think all my issues have been addressed several times.
Okay, thank you. And then Kelly Hudson may wish to speak. Or does not wish to speak. Oh, okay. I've got into the does not wish to speak now. Okay. Let me double check my list. While I do that, if anybody who's here who marked does not wish to speak, or I guess anyone who's here since then and has not spoken, if you'd like to speak, you can head on up.
My name is Valerie Kuntz, and I reside at 6264 West Heine Road, Coeur d'Alene. And thank you for hearing our opinions and interests. And a couple things. First, I wanted to say thank you to Andrea Littlefield, who spoke earlier. She works for the Kootenai County and the Fire Smart program. Again, she iterated that the Fire Smart program, I've been working with the Fire Smart program for over a year on our property to try and get that as an area that would be considered for the Fire Smart program and approved. And it is not a necessarily easy or given process. It all depends on grant approval, and they look at regions and trying to get connected landowners so that it does make that wide fire break. And so I noticed that in the February 3rd response from the Vertus representatives, it indicated that the applicant would apply and participate in the Fire Smart program, but that is not a guarantee. I mean, the Fire Smart program provides guidance and recommendations for wildfire mitigation. So just because you show interest does not mean it's a guaranteed a matter of fact that your property will be approved or part of a grant solution. So I think that's really important for everyone to realize that it's not automatic. You can't just snap your fingers, apply, and get grant funding for that, for fire support. And also I wanted to just state that I am not an immediate Greens Ferry resident. I do live on the other side of Cougar Gulch, and while the noise wouldn't impact me, or specifically the traffic unless we were in an evacuation state through egress, I am concerned about the wildlife corridor, and I am concerned about the precedence that this approval would make perhaps in my own backyard for again, a rural community, and if this sets a precedence for other wedding venues and other places of assembly out in the rural community in my neighborhood. I live on the same situation, private road, one way in, one way out, and if my neighbor decided to use their 20 acres as an event center, I would be distraught. So while this is not my neighborhood, you're setting a precedence in your decision and the recommendations we make for Kootenai County and our rural communities. So thank you for your consideration.
Okay, thank you. And I apologize. I looks like I got some of the papers mixed up, and I'll just say I just found a couple of people who are in favor who may wish to speak, and I'm gonna come back to them after this. And I'm starting to see some people who may wish to speak, so I'm gonna go through and try to find those. The next person I have is Katie Porch, who may wish to speak. And again, if you mark does not wish to speak, I'm not going to call your name. Yeah, so if anyone, I saw another gentleman was going to get up. Yeah, if you change your mind, please come on up while I'm looking.
My name is Justin Duva. I live at 9098 West Ridgeline Lane, just off of Greens Ferry. As the crow flies, I'm about 3,000 feet from the proposed venue. I just want to add one more point. It seemed it brought up that the proposal itself is finding lacking in detail and is incomplete. One item that was shown was that the events would end at 10:30 without any further without any further explanation there. Does that just mean the music goes off at 10? Does that mean all guests are required to be off the property at 10? I think just those questions right there can show the scenario of everything ends and the catering truck is going down Greens Ferry at 3 in the morning. So just wanted to point that out, that was a little incomplete as well.
Okay, thank you.
My name is Tom Osborne, and I live off Parkview Drive in Post Falls. One of the things that I haven't heard addressed tonight is traffic. I've heard the mention of one way in, one way out. I've lived in the neighborhood since 2019, and in the years as they progress and more people move into the area, I've noticed the traffic going across Spokane Street has doubled. I would say at least doubled. It's hard for us to get out of our own neighborhoods now because of the amount of traffic that's coming back and forth across Spokane Street Bridge. They attempted to put in plans to recreate the Greens Ferry crossing, and I'm not sure what the outcome of that other than it was denied. The only other exit out of that area is out through Cougar Gulch. And the amount amount of traffic that it's going to bring, not just for the people attending the events, but what about the construction traffic, bringing the semi-trucks and the dump trucks in there for the fill to create the event, to make all this happen for them? That's going to just increase the traffic across the Spokane Street Bridge. What about the maintenance of that bridge, the maintenance of the roads going up to the property, of the regular roads that are maintained by the county? None of that has been addressed tonight. That's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you, sir. Almost to the bottom of the stack. Well, I guess if nobody's coming up, I may not have missed you. Sure, yes. And I did find two that weren't marked, so I'll call them after that.
Hello. Hi, I remember you from last time. My name's Laura Malpera, and I live at 922 Marcus Drive in Bella Ridge. And I just have a comment. I think we've pretty well established that there's one way in and one way out to this venue, Little Cedar Creek Lane. And so I have a recommendation, and that is that the applicant and the county prove by demonstration that a minimum of one fire engine, fire department supervisors and their vehicles, the sheriff's department officers and their assorted vehicles, plus fire and rescue vehicles, can they all fit, fight a potential fire, attend to injuries, and then turn around on that same road while 200 people are trying to get out safely and in a panic mode probably? Sounds very challenging and dangerous. So I think this should be, a good recommendation given that people's lives are at stake.
Okay. Thank you. And sorry, what was your name again, ma'am?
Laura Malpera.
Okay.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Okay, and the other two I have that are unmarked are Rick Murphy, that didn't mark whether they wanted to speak or not. And what looks like Kathy Orkey, or something, that didn't mark. Ortega. Okay, just making sure. Okay, and like I said, or actually, do we need to check the phones real quick? Is there anybody connected? No? Oh, you can't tell? No, I'm sorry. Okay.
I have a question, sir. I just arrived. I was working. May I speak?
Sure, yeah. And after you speak, I'll have you fill out one of these forms so we get your name.
Yes, sir. I'm Dylan Nielsen. I live on Riverview Drive, 10338. I don't know what's been said already. I wasn't here for it, but I'm sure everybody that's here knows the traffic is already pretty heavy and fast on Riverview. People pass my house constantly doing 50 to 60 miles an hour. People coming to and from this venue aren't going to be from this area, and I don't think they're going to care much for the speed limit. And then leaving this venue, is there any way you're going to prevent people from leaving that have been drinking? My kids are playing in my front yard. I have dogs and cats. And I just don't know what I would do if somebody hit my kid because they were leaving a wedding drunk. On top of that, like I said, they don't live here. Most of them probably are coming from out of town. they don't know the area that well, and it gets pretty dark in there. Most weddings end when it's dark, right? So I don't think it's very safe for people to be coming and going through that neighborhood. It's like somebody said, it's one way in and out. The only way they're getting in and out of there is either through Cougar Gulch or down Riverview and then upriver. I heard that somebody said it's only going to affect a 1 mile square radius of the venue. That's not true. It's going to affect all the way to Spokane Street and all the way to 95. So that's how many houses? Hundreds, right? So, it's affecting the entire side of the river, basically. And you could even say all the way to Washington, because these people are going to be leaving intoxicated, and they're going to take the back road all the way down Riverview, all the way to the border. So if you wanted to count all the way into the border, it's probably 1,000 homes. So I don't think it's worth it. And then on top of that, you're bringing a business in, and you're giving the green light for more businesses to approach on that area. So who's to say the next business isn't a gas station on the corner of Greens Ferry and Riverview? You know, I don't think it's worth doing. Keep the businesses on the other side of the river. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Sure.
My name's Bill Starkweather. I live at 9322 West Ridgeline Lane. And after hearing everybody's comments, yes, I am opposed. And who's going to be responsible when the fire starts? Because inevitably there will be a fire. There will be. Who's going to be responsible for rebuilding my house? I'm going to be responsible. My insurance is going to be responsible. Nobody else is going to be responsible for replacing everybody's houses. And with all this opposition, and this is approved and the commissioners vote yes, they're not going to be responsible for what happens. We are. And with all this opposition, I hope the commissioners and whoever else approves this can live with the fact when something happens, it'll be on your watch, and you will have approved this for the devastation of our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in opposition who wishes to speak at this time? All right, and like I said, hate to put you at the end of all those opposed, but I do have Topher Paul who said they wish to speak in favor. Would you like to still? Okay.
My name is Topher Paul. I'm at 3042 West Sorbonne Drive. I wanted to speak in regards to some of the arguments and discussions around sound. I'm a professional audio engineer, and I've been in thousands of professional audio and environments. I've DJ'd weddings. I've done a lot of different events like this, and there's concern regarding research that people have done online, and a lot of that can be misleading. And so I just wanted to speak this. The main concern, or one of the concerns that I'm hearing, is that sound from this venue will carry long distances and disrupt nearby properties. And while people understand it won't stay the same decibel level across, different lengths, there's still a gap in understanding just how quickly it actually dissipates. Sound doesn't fade gradually, it falls off fast. Every time you double the distance from the source, the level drops by about 6 decibels. That reduction compounds quickly. Now apply that to this situation. the closest neighbor is 1,200 feet away. That's not a short distance. That's multiple rounds of sound reduction before it ever even gets there. And the property line limit that is set at 75 decibels, that's the maximum allowed at the boundary, not the source. By the time sound travels that far, it has already dropped significantly and then continues to drop beyond that point. Also, it's crazy that I wasn't tripping at you. The peanut gallery is louder than the events are going to be.
Can I please, everybody, please?
The property line limit is set at 75 decibels. That's the maximum allowed at the boundary. Also, the property line is just that, a boundary. People aren't consistently standing right on it. They're set back from it, which means that sound actually is experienced even lower than what's measured at the property line. So while sound does carry, the idea that it will reach a neighbor at 1,200 feet away is a disruptive level. It doesn't reflect how sound actually behaves over distance. What's being proposed here is sound that diminishes rapidly is measured at the boundary and is capped at a defined limit. That's the reality of the physics involved. The professional audio people that are at different venues and events are regularly capped at different decibel limits. They understand that. Not to mention the fact that speakers aren't omnidirectional. They're pointed in very specific sources. In this case, they would be pointed directly into a hillside.
If I could just please ask everyone got an opportunity to give their public comment. He's a member of the community. He's giving his public comments now as well. So please, you can disagree, but while he's giving his public comment, please keep it down, please.
That's all I have to say. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to give public comment who has not already given public comment? Sorry, sir. Okay.
Greg Basham. I live at 1768 South Starlight Drive, Sundown Ridge Estates. We are one property above that property line, 450 feet. As the crow flies, if you drive it, it's more than a mile, so we're outside the area of influence. Regarding the sound thing again here, it's great that the county set a level. They've agreed to it. They proposed to it. It's been agreed to. But so what if they violate it? What happens? And who's going to do the measuring? And how's it going to be overseen? What equipment's going to be used? I live right up the hill. We hear stuff from down that valley all the time, from chickens, helicopters, all sorts of stuff down there. Right, dogs barking right on that same street that we know where they live because they're friends of ours. We hear it all the time. So that's my question: is what's going to happen when is there any teeth to it? Is there any bite? So we have our sound thing at our property, and it's saying 75 decibels. It's above the limit. What do we do? I don't want to hear that at 9:30 at night. I want to be able to do something about it. So what do we do? Is there something in the county, if somebody violates their CUP conditions, that we get to say, this is bogus, we want this addressed? Everybody's already talked about fire and traffic, so I'm not going to hit on that stuff. But that's one of my big concerns, because I know we're going to deal with it. And regardless of what the sound engineer says, we hear stuff all the time coming up that bowl, up that valley, from right down in there and much further away, like the freeway, the speedway, all sorts of stuff, the construction traffic, anything. We hear it. The reality for the 200 plus people here that have continued to oppose this is essentially this. Hypothetically, if somebody in our neighborhood were to propose doing this, and they went to their neighbors and they said, I bought this property because I want to do this, and the plans got rejected initially, and then they go to the neighbors again and say, hey, I want to do this, and the neighbors say no, what kind of jerk would continue on and do this, you know, and want to keep doing this, especially after the first hearing when there was over 200 comments on us. It's like, you know, good person or not, but that's just not the kind of neighbor that's going to be anything positive for the neighborhood. It's going to create nothing but problems and animosity and hostilities. And that's what I think we're experiencing is a lot of it. Unfortunately, there's not a violation I can give you for that, but that's a lot of the frustration that we're feeling, because if this goes through, it really is going to impact all sorts of qualities of our life for a number of people. Not one person is trying to bring a commercial business into his rural residential neighborhood, and that's exactly what he's trying to do. He's trying to sneak it in there under the radar and hired a big money company to convince you guys that it's okay because it checks all these guidelines and all this stuff. But the reality for us is it's going to really screw things up for us, a lot of us. So that's all I have to say.
Okay. Thank you, sir. All right, is there anyone else who wishes to give public comment? At this time, I'm going to do a calling once, calling twice, but as soon as I close the public comment period, there's going to be no more opportunity for public comments. So now is your last chance. If you have not spoken, please make your way up to the podium. And I'll also say one last time, if there's anybody who is connected via our telephone system, you may go ahead and speak up now. Okay, seeing no one else move, that is going to conclude our public testimony portion of tonight's hearing. There is an opportunity now for both the applicant and staff to provide rebuttal testimony. I don't know if there's one or the other side who's chomping at the bit to go first. Typically, the applicant will have their opportunity for rebuttal.
Thank you, Mr. Hearing Examiner. Sandy Young, for the record, 3906 North Schreiber Way. There's so much I could rebut and refute, but in an attempt to raise the decorum of the audience, I'm going to refrain. One way in and one way out. We've heard that so many times tonight. There is one way in and one way out for one home, the Mitchells, and their venue. Bella Ridge residents, most who are in this room tonight, are 36 homes right across the street with one way in and one way out. I'm going to address the Fire Smart topic that came up tonight. So I was on the original board 25 years ago when Fire Smart started. We proposed a grant, received it, put together a board of directors. And at that time, and for many years after that, you could apply. Any one person in this room could apply. And with our $1 million grant that we had gotten, you were able to have your property cleaned up. Ladder fuels, whatever it is you wanted. So I take full responsibility for putting that in the staff report, assuming that the program had stayed the same. However, when we obtain our report from a certified wildfire mitigation expert, if there is no Fire Smart program to do the cleanup, then obviously the applicant will be responsible for that, and the county or the fire district or IDL will ensure that that is done. We are not asking for an exception. We're asking for a conditional use that, as you know, is allowed by law. And you've heard enough cases in your career to know that final plans are never submitted before approval is received from the Board of County Commissioners or whatever hearing body there is. Obviously, to go to that extent is just not warranted and never has been in my 29 years of land use planning in this county. The county will enforce the decibel levels. They always have. They can impose that as a condition, and the logs are turned in just as they are for other venues in the county. So I am sure that they will continue to do so with this one. It's an understatement to say that a lot of public testimony has been received, both written and verbal. Much of what we have heard are valid concerns, but in sifting through, many are the result of opponents as far away as Hauser Lake and Rathdrum, who I feel have been solicited and subsequently jumped on a rhetorical bandwagon. The opposition has proven that marketing efforts do pay off. As well, some of the do not supports are duplicates. Same hearing, tonight, same person, days or weeks apart submitted, separate exhibit numbers. So our count is really a moot point. But nevertheless, they're all entered into the record, and I, like you, have read every one of them. In their staff analysis, the county has determined that this conditional use fully demonstrates procedural compliance and meets all applicable development standards for a place of assembly in the rural zone without variances. Tonight, Stephanie and I have provided you with additional information supporting documentation to further bolster that county statement. I believe that the implementation of the conditions that you suggested in your report will constitute compatibility with the existing residences in the rural zone. You have suggested and we have agreed to provide a fire mitigation and an evacuation plan, both prepared by professionals certified in that field. You have asked and we have agreed to provide an updated site plan with additional parking spaces, and we will prohibit off-site parking. Again, the county will enforce that. You have asked for, and we fully agree with, a condition that limits decibel levels to 60 at the property lines. Strict record keeping at each event will prove our commitment to this condition. There won't be creep, as far as what I heard tonight. The question of the conditional use will continue to grow. We know, you know, I know, the director knows that the county, or what's presented in a conditional use application and what's approved, they are strictly held to. And any expansion of that requires an amended CUP. Based on our compliance with the suggested conditions of approval, I ask that you approve this request. I know that Stephanie has a few things to add. I thank you for your consideration.
Thank you.
Stephanie Blaylock for the record. I just have one thing to add. There's been several people mention pinch points. Those will be taken out. The road will meet the IFC standards, and we're not asking for any kind of a variance. Little Cedar Road will be upgraded. That's all I have, unless you have questions.
Give me a moment real quick. You can sit down for right now. Let me review my notes and let me see if there's anything staff wanted to add before Mr. Foughty or Mr.
Nothing more to add. Yeah, I would say that this application is not up for staff to rebut. So if you have any questions of staff, we'd be willing to answer those questions, but it would be inappropriate to insert our opinion there.
Just if there's anything else you wanted to add based on the comments that you've heard. So you are correct. I should not have used the word rebut for you guys. So.
Mr. Granrat, I respectfully request that you reopen the public comments very briefly. I did not use my entire 15 minutes, and Ms. Young just stood here and made a bold-faced lie to you. There is an emergency.
Ma'am, I've heard your testimony, and someone else testified to that, and I have heard testimony. I've made no findings of fact.
A fresh point. She said Bella Ridge does not have emergency access. It does. It goes right by her property, and it was a condition of the county approving Bella Ridge, and Bella Ridge is 60 feet wide. It's not a one-lane dirt road. So I just wanted to clear up that gross misrepresentation.
The applicant has proposed that it'd be 60 at the property line as their final comment here today at the hearing. So. Sir, please, you're not getting picked up on the recording, and the public comment period has ended. I apologize, but that is our process and procedure. Okay, I don't have any more questions for the applicant at this time. As I stated before, I have up to 2 weeks on which to write my recommendation that goes to your county commissioners, who again will ultimately be making the decision in this case. That said, I'm going to be closing the record and adjourning the hearing for CUP 25-0008 in the Mitchell Event Center, and we are adjourned.